Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 966 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And we've got very big news today that the Russians were slammed in Kursk. There's major fires happening in Moscow, and we just got word that stealth B-2 bombers just bombed Yemen on behalf of the United States. And that is crazy to see as well. It's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we've been able to get a large amount of news today, not only from inside of Ukraine, which has been incredibly large news, but we've also been able to get a decent amount of news out of the Middle East and also East Asia as well, with a small recap in that area. Starting off with our most major news points and a general summary here, we've been able to hear that the Russian offensive in the Kursk Oblast, attempting to push the Ukrainians out of the area, has once again run into a brick wall today, with an incredibly large amount of losses being taken, and the Russian offensive being conducted so zealously by higher commands that it appears that they ran headlong into Ukrainian tank column and ended up getting obliterated on film. We have that on film today, that a Russian APC got point blank to a Ukrainian tank and went and met whoever's upstairs. But beyond that, we have also been able to see that in the war in Ukraine so far, that there's been a major fire at a Russian airbase just outside of Moscow, within the Moscow Oblast, technically within the Moscow metropolitan area. And we've also been able to see that Ukrainian forces have continued to conduct incredibly heroic defenses in the areas such as Chasiv Yar and Pokrovsk, while also at the same time, the Ukrainian partisans are starting to set up Wile E. Coyote-style roadblocks in the middle of the night that Russians are running into and dying in mass. We have more of that at 11. But moving on out of that little area and down into the Middle East, we also have been able to see that a decent Israeli airstrike has been conducted today in Syria on the coastal town of Latakia, which we believe may be used to support and smuggle arms from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to other proxy forces in the region. And at the exact same time, we've also been able to get additional information that Hezbollah has continued their attacks against the Israeli citizenry near to the northern border area. And we were able to see that in the town of Karat Shimona, a rocket actually ended up impacting into the dead center of the town. The Iron Domes were unable to intercept the rocket before it made impact, or really landfall, if you want to call it that. At the exact same time, while all of this is going on in the Middle East, and we also got proof of the THAAD being deployed in Israel today, we were able to hear that just minutes ago, as we were going live on air, the United States Air Force is currently conducting a strike against the Yemeni Houthis within Western Yemen, backed and funded by the Islamic Republic of Iran. We've also been able to get additional information that apparently these strikes were conducted by the venerable and famous stealth bomber, the B-2 Spirit. And we'll be getting a little bit more news as we go through the stream, because right now that story is literally developing as we went live on air, and so we only have the information that the B-2 was involved. But what do you got, Matthew?
That is nuts. I was about to say that's nuts the B-2 has made a return like that, because like I was telling you before the show started, it's been a minute before the B-2's been used like that. And honestly, out of all the bombers, the B-2 stealth bomber is one of the most menacing looking aircraft when it flies overhead, and especially when it's dropping bombs. It's even more menacing because of course there's explosives being dropped out of the bottom of it. But the fact that thing went over Yemen and bombed it, that is crazy to see that thing back in action.
It really is. And on top of that, speaking of what's been going on around the world, we were also able to get really big news. I have to make sure to make a note of this myself, that 50 Abrams tanks from Australia are going to be shipped to Ukraine to help them out in their war effort. And not only that, we have also been able to hear that the Korean situation has gotten so serious that the most senior officer of the Korean Armed Forces has had to cancel his visit to the United States to conduct a formal meeting with the United States Department of Defense, and instead will be staying inside of South Korea because the situation is so tense that it could kick off at any given moment, and senior command would be required at the literal instant of the point of contact. We are getting loads of news today. Some concerning news, of course, like we're hearing from the Korean Peninsula, but other news has been pretty good so far today in most other areas of the world, and things seem to be on the general up and up, at least for the picture that the West is seeing. But moving on into our first bit of news today, that's actually going to be bringing us on up and into Ukraine, as we have been able to hear that the Russian armed forces have been conducting an offensive against the Ukrainian armed forces and trying to push them out of the region. While they did end up hitting a roadblock on the first day, over the course of Monday, and I will be editing this for all of y'all to see live, we were able to hear that Ukrainian forces were pushed back from the area around Koronivo, and the Russians were also able to reopen the land corridor to the Russian brigade that was trapped south of the Rekha Sim, near to the town of Snigost. At the moment, we understand that the Ukrainians are currently conducting defensive efforts on the outskirts of the village of Lyubomovka, and the Russian forces are attempting to try and drive a sledgehammer directly down the highway passing through Lyubomovka, and hopefully making it into Ukrainian Ukrainian rear lines near to the town of Sudza. We have not been able to see that Russian forces have made this advance yet, and it does seem as though Russian forces on the Koronivo axis are running into some very difficult times, as Ukrainian forces are starting to put up a lot more of a resilient defense now that they've been pushed back about a mile or two. Meanwhile, in the other direction, we have been able to see that in the Bolshoi-Soldatskoye area, there is another Russian offensive that is beginning to occur in this area. We believe this may be a part of a grander Russian offensive plan. While most Ukrainian forces are tied up right now around the Battle of Lyubomovka, the Russian 810th Naval Infantry Brigade is conducting an advance of their own from Bolshoi-Soldatskoye and down the R200 highway towards Sudza to also once again attempt to overwhelm Ukrainian forces, also fix them in position, and then hopefully isolate them and destroy them in detail in further battles. That isn't really transpiring the way the Russians would want in a grand battle plan, or at least in the kind of battle plan we believe they are implementing at the moment, as the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade today was slammed. And I mean slammed. We got it on film. Now I'm going to be showing y'all the complete film, the whole clip that we have from this direction, and also an additional one of the 225th operating in this area as well. As the 225th mechanized battalion, or really I actually believe it is a mechanized battalion of the 176th Territorial Defense Forces, is the one that's currently pretty much going up against the entirety of the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade in this area. And so for that reason, all combat actions in the Kursk Oblast that we're going to be looking at today are specifically through the eyes of the 225th Battalion and their drone forces that were in the area. But right here, you can actually see our lone hero, the Russian BTR-82. The Russian BTR-82s are a pretty common kind of an armored personnel carrier to see in the modern day. They are a pretty well-equipped armored personnel carrier. At that, armored personnel carriers are generally armored taxis that move infantry to the battlefield, drop them off, provide limited fire support, and then immediately retreat from the field and maybe conduct some light supporting action in the meantime, but they're not really meant to stick around on the battlefield and really duke it out. They're really just meant to get up there, lay down a little fire, drop guys off, and then leave. This is probably about the best APC, armored personnel carrier, or armored taxi, that kind of fills that role for the Russians. There really aren't a lot that get better than this. The only comparable one is really the BMP-2 or the BMP-3, but this is the one that the Russians have really started to lean on a lot these days. They're fairly numerous, and not only that, they're a lot easier to maintain as far as the supply lines go, or the supply chain is concerned with repair parts and replacements and such things as that. But this is the vehicle that we're about to see in this clip. This is going to be our heroic, stalwart Russians charging forward to meet the Ukrainians from the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade once again. But here it goes through the field, and that up there, if y'all don't know, is actually a Ukrainian main battle tank. Now, this is kind of the interesting thing that starts to happen when we start to analyze equipment against each other. That is a Ukrainian T-64BV, and we actually showed y'all one of these in our little, kind of like a thumbnail of a sort. This is the tank that we're looking at. These things are pretty beefy compared to a BTR-82. These are a frontline brawler. They have enough armor and they have enough firepower to sit on the front lines if necessary and just slug it out with the other side. It is able to shrug off anti-tank weaponry like RPGs pretty easily. It's not able to shrug off anti-tank guided missiles, however. That's one thing that will go clean through a T-64. And also FPV drones in the modern day especially pose a major risk to really any kind of drone that you would see out there. But considering that this is currently going up against the BTR-82, so let me go get the picture of that again, which is something along the lines of this, I can kind of get the idea that the firepower here, the disparity in between the two, is a little big. The biggest gun on the BTR-82 is this 30mm, I believe it's a 2A40 autocannon. The biggest gun on the T-64 is the 125mm smoothbore main cannon, that can fire high explosive rounds, armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabos, and it can also fire a wide variety of other rounds whenever required. These things can actually fire a wire-guided missile as well, which is kind of unique, but they don't really use those much in the modern day anymore. But nevertheless, y'all can kind of get the idea. This is going to be a showdown for the ages right here, and it looks like the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade is really starting to believe a little too hard in that whole idea of the Necrosmashimnia Legendaria, or Invincible and Legendary, as the Russians like to call it. And so we can see our heroic BTR-82 making the charge, and the Ukrainian tanks are in complete disbelief at this. There's two of them right there, both of them T-64s, and they're literally just watching the BTR just roll right up onto them. The Russians know these are Ukrainian tanks. They're clearly marked as Ukrainian tanks, and the Ukrainians also know that this is a Russian BTR. Everyone in this situation knows who is who, so it's completely confusing as to why an APC would be head-on charging a tank like this in the middle of open combat. We can see the BTR with the troops on the back of the tank continuing to make it forward, and then in a second, we're about to see the big mistake. Right there, you see, that was the mistake.
Oh dear, that was a big mistake there. That was really stupid. I wonder what the Russians were thinking, like when they were doing this. They were like, we're just going to drive right past the Ukrainians and they're just going to like stare at us or something. That was a really dumb idea.
I don't really know what the plan was behind this, but it didn't go well. And so we can see that the first tank slams, I'm assuming, a high explosive round into the BTR, which brings it to a dead stop, pretty much wiping out everyone that was inside the BTR. And we can see that some of the few Russians that are left are now climbing off, and one of them is actually running to the tank.
Oh, he's running past. He figured he's going to get out of there. Probably pretty smart. I'm surprised anybody survived that, by the way. Like, these guys on the top, like, how the hell you survive, like, a direct hit like that to the BTR?
I don't know, and it looks like you see the Russians running from the tank here. And we now see a heavier hit of something else hitting near the front of the destroyed BTR. The Ukrainian tank, by the way, just to let y'all know, that Russian infantryman that did run past, he pretty much made it out of there if he was able to be unseen by that tank and everyone else. Tanks don't really have impressive optics, in case y'all don't know. They're kind of like the knights of the modern battlefield, and while they're really armored and really beefed up, most of the crew members inside of a tank hardly see anything. The gunner has a scope that he's looking through that is pretty much a one-to-one view of what the looking through the barrel of the gun would get you to see. The driver can only see forwards and kind of a little bit to the sides, but very little. And the commander is the only person in the entire tank that is able to look 360 degrees around the tank, but even then his vision's really limited. So that little Russian infantryman that ran past the tank in the confusion probably went completely undetected by everyone in the tank. They probably didn't even see the guy. And the other Russians seem to be running for the hills as well. And when you see the BTR has been shredded, like you can't really see it that well in this part of the clip, but you can see that the whole upper roof and pretty much the whole front of the BTR has been destroyed, which is heavily leading us to believe that this tank had a high explosive round loaded, which was the proper round to use in this kind of a situation. Armor piercing would be simply too much. It would literally pass right through. It would kill everyone in the tank, in the APC by overpressure, but it still would be considerable overkill for the target that they were firing at. But moving on from this clip, we do have an additional clip showing a little bit of what happened afterwards, because we did get footage from the 225th Battalion showing us what happened later, and we could see the Ukrainian tank at the front still looking at the destroyed and burning BTR. You know, Matthew, actually, crazily enough, that high explosive round had enough pressure in it, or at least enough pressure in the hole. You can actually see that the BTR's chassis bent from it. Like, you can see that there's an arch in the chassis now.
I'm not surprised at all. And also, by the way, like there's some really bad lag on my end tonight. I was trying to say something a second ago and apparently didn't pick it up, so bear with me on that. Dang. But I was about to say a second ago, you know, the Ukrainians were slightly confused by that thing driving up on the tank, because it took them a minute to actually pull the trigger and fire on the BTR when it did pull up. I think they were like trying to determine, is this really actually what I think it is, like the enemy pulling up, or is this one of our guys, or what? Because the fact that they waited so long to fire at the thing was kind of a little bit interesting.
It really is incredibly interesting, to say the least. Like, I don't really know what was going on through their heads right there. But one thing that did go through the Ukrainians' heads is that they just want to make sure that this thing is down and out for the count. You know, the chassis is bent, the whole entire front of the BTR is gone, and it's smoking like the RBMK reactor at Chernobyl. But the Ukrainians are still going to give it one extra little hit right there, just to make sure it's completely wiped out.
I think they might be a little OP, Russians that just pulled up.
Dude, you are lagging horrendously, man. Like, it is very bad. I'm not gonna lie. It's horrendous. Like,
I hate that damn lag. Also, good news though, people. We have fiber being installed literally tomorrow, so this will be fixed by tomorrow night on the stream. So this is the last night we're dealing with RoboMet, and the last night we're dealing with lag, hopefully, and we'll have that fiber tomorrow. So that's good news at least.
And that is incredibly good news. I'm so sorry that y'all are all having to deal with this in the meantime, because we have been working so hard in the background to get everything back on track and running here at the news studio. And so hopefully we will be able to have that fix up and running here very quickly, so that way y'all don't have to also listen to lag as well, because I know that's got to be as annoying for y'all as it is for Matthew and also me on top of that. But moving on from that, I do have to tell y'all that this little clip right here is a duplicate, just in case if one of the clips went down. This is the very beginning of the clip when the BTR first got blasted. But if y'all want to see it, we can show it, because this was actually apparently a different drone angle that was taken by the 225th Battalion that was in the area. We can see the BTR-82 making the charge. We can actually see it was firing at the Ukrainians, like it actively knew what it was driving into. And we can see it get blasted right there again. Just a horrendous blast. Shredded the tank. Oh, heavens.
They need their fiber. Look at them. They say, obliat, where do we go? You know, like they were probably thinking, like, once that thing fires, we're finished. We're not going to worry about those. But sure enough, somehow they live. And now they got to figure out, where the hell are we running to? We're in the middle of a field here with the enemy everywhere. So it's like, surrender at that point or something. Like, put your hands up and surrender.
Man, you know something I just realized? The high explosive shell, when it blew up in the front of the BTR, was so strong, it literally lifted up the turret and rested it onto the back of the BTR. Like, there's the turret right there with the gun facing up into the sky. Like, the entire turret got lifted up and pushed back from the explosion onto the roof of the rear end of the APC.
That's crazy too, because you don't really get to see too many like point blank shots from a tank like that. Like you really got to see like the actual power of the thing within just a couple hundred feet away. And those tanks have some crazy power, man. It literally shredded the metal out of that thing.
Yeah, it's literally turned it into like paper mache. And we can see that that's the end of the clip right there from the 225th Battalion, but still an impressive look at that strike. Well, more so not the strike, but the obliteration that happened today in the area of Bolshoi Soldatskoye. We also got to see some additional footage from the 225th Battalion in this area of a Ukrainian Marder 1A3 operating in the area. So here's the clip. And we're going to be muting that, but we can see the Marder making its drive down the road. This is in the early morning hours. We can also see an electronic warfare jamming system on the back of the Marder right there, once again to try and stop drones from being able to hit it as easily. And we can now see them showing a RPG that flew right past them. So the Russian, oh my god! Dude, there was two of them!
Look at that.
And now the Marder is lighting those guys up down there at that tree line.
They're trying not to become martyrs today. They're just trying to keep the tank name that way.
Yeah. Man, I'm telling you. And we can see the Marder slewing the turret a little bit further to the left. We now see them hitting it in the open field. Not really sure what they're doing yet. They're kind of zigzagging, possibly trying to make it harder for a Russian anti-tank gunner to hit them. And we can see a round actually fly over right there. I'm not sure if that was an RPG. It looks like a tracer round. But we can see them continuing to fly over the Marder as it oh my goodness! That was an FPV drone right there that just flew right over the turret. And now they're making it up to, I think, the Russian tree line. I'm not really sure here. We can see another tracer fly over as the Marder starts racing around the corner.
It's like they're playing Frogger out here with these things, the way they're running around the enemy. Is it really intended to be used like this, like chasing around the enemy like that?
Not really, no. No, and Marder's not made to do that.
It's kind of odd.
Like the Marder is the German equivalent of the BTR-82 or like a BMP-1 or a BMP-2 or something like that. These things are like the entire job of an APC like these on all sides doctrinally is to load up the infantry into the back. These things drive up there, and if for some reason someone tries to shoot at them, they can't shoot through the armor because it's thick enough to deflect pretty much most calibers of rifle fire, and also maybe some anti-tank weapons on the lighter side. They drop off the troops, they use the little gun on the top of this thing to lay down some suppressing fire to help the infantry get out of the vehicle, and then as soon as the infantry are out of the vehicle, this thing kind of backs up a little bit, fires a little bit more, but then it's kind of supposed to turn around and get out of there to a safe area, so that way when the fight's over, it comes back up to the front, picks up the infantry again, and then moves them somewhere else, or something along those lines. That's what these things are really supposed to be used for, but not bringing them up to the front lines and literally getting them into like a fist fight, Russell Crowe style, on the battlefield. Like, they're not really supposed to be doing this. They're not designed for this kind of a thing, but it still looks like they're doing pretty okay doing that. I mean, like, not that bad. They survived, and they're slamming them, so I guess it's doing a fairly okay job, but nevertheless, a very interesting look at what's going on in the Kursk Oblast today. And while the Ukrainians have been pushed back in the Korenivo area, we are expecting that they will be able to put up a very strong defensive near Lyubomovka and hopefully hold the remainder of the territory that they have in this area, maybe even restabilize the situation and once again conduct another advance towards Korenivo and also towards Snagost. Another thing that I do have to put out is that while the Russians have been taking very high casualties, they are advancing in a way that was a little unexpected. From what we understood, the Ukrainians did have a pretty decent hold onto the area of the E38 highway from Kursk to Rilisk, which is the main supply line for this direction of fighting, and for that reason we did believe that the Russians would be dealing with reduced supply capacity, and if a major offensive that would be pushing the Ukrainians back would be coming from anywhere, it would most likely come from the Bolshoi-Soldatskoye direction. However, this information that we're getting recently showing that the Russians are able to push the Ukrainians back a little bit in that area is possibly suggesting that another supply line has been made somewhere rather than Kursk and down the E38 that is supplying the hub at Rilisk and allowing the Russian forces to be able to conduct an advance in this area and relieve the trapped brigade that was south of the Reka Sim. We'll have to try and figure out exactly where any paved roads exist in this area and also where the supply route could be so that we can get a better idea and a picture for analysis reasons on this channel of what the Russians are really doing in this direction at this point. But moving on from the Kursk area, we were able to hear of something fairly interesting that happened around Moscow, Blia, today. And moving all out here to Moscow, you can see the beautiful Moscow City Oblast area, Blia, home to 11 million people, and also home to a pretty decent amount of Russian air bases as well. You can actually see one of them right here. This is a Russian air base, and it is home to Russian aircraft, Russian helicopters, things like that. And also over here you can see more Russian civil aviation and also possibly some Russian transport aircraft like the Ilyushin 76s that you see out there on the runway. But nevertheless, what's very interesting about this is that the Russian Air Force also has another air base, and I'm trying to find it in this area because there's actually a couple within Western Moscow, well, Eastern Moscow specifically. And let me see here, it's somewhere around here. And I need to focus with mine own eyes to see if I can find this thing, because there's a major ammo dump right there. But let me see if I can find it. You know what? Let me just go click on the clip, because I got to make sure that we get this exact. And this is the Chilovsky Military Airfield. So let me go type that in. It should be up here somewhere. Yep, there we go. That's it. It is this one. I got it right off the bat. I don't know why I doubted myself. This was the spot. This was the place right here. But nevertheless, this is the airfield that the Russian Air Force operates out of to a limited degree. And also the Russian Army also operates a helicopter attack wing out of this area as well, largely using Ka-52s and also Mi-28s from what we know. But it does appear that a major fire broke out at this airfield today, which we were able to see right here. It's a nice roaring blaze, keeping most of the people here warm and also making sure to cook them well done. We were also able to see an additional clip here of a Russian military helicopter. It appears to actually be a Mi-26, which is huge. Like, these are actually some of the biggest helicopters flying in the world currently. To show you a quick picture of this, just so that we all know. These things are beasts in size. Like, huge.
Jeez. That's massive, man. And also, I noticed over there in the description of the post, it said that, go back to it real quick. It said that the administrative building was on fire at the place. I wonder if that's really true. It's according to Russian media. So, of course, they lie like dogs. But, you know, if it's the administrative building, why would the fire be really that big? Surely the building for administration is not that large. And also, why would that building containing paperwork and office workers be catching on fire like that? Because I doubt the hot pocket of the fire is probably something else.
Maybe so. That's actually a very good question. And I don't really know why it would be on fire or something along those lines. It is a fairly big building, though. Here, it's right here, actually. And it does look like it would be a bit of a blaze, a bit of a burn that would be going on here. But still, it is very interesting to see that apparently the fire was so severe that the Department of Emergency Situations pulled out an Mi-26 with a water bucket to be able to deal with this. The Mi-26 is the biggest helicopter that's currently in Russian service, and I believe technically this is the biggest helicopter in the world. Let's see, yeah, it is the largest helicopter that have gone into serial production, and there's about 300 of these as of 2015. So there's still a pretty large amount of them out there in the world. And this would give us an idea to believe that the fire was severe enough that, unlike the normal Kamarov 29s that they pull out to deal with most fires, this one required the literal largest helicopter with the largest low capacity to be able to try and put this fire out. So something was very serious about this for them to do that, because they were trying to put this thing out rapidly with just the sheer amount of water that they were trying to bring to the site. But nevertheless, one other thing that I want to show y'all about this helicopter, let me see if they do not have the picture, but here's the internal cargo bay to give y'all an idea of the size of the internal cargo bay in an Mi-26. It's pretty big, but I need to find y'all this, because I know a lot of y'all will get the idea of how big this thing is once I show y'all a picture of it compared to a Chinook. So Mi-26 versus Chinook. By the way, when I pull up the pictures here, you will see this, because this is always something that I find very interesting. We have seen an Mi-26 carry an entire Chinook, because it has that much carrying capacity. Like, it's that powerful. The thing's pretty big. It's pretty beefy. I'm trying to make sure to get that out as best as I can. And not only that, let me see if I can show y'all another picture here of what the Mi-26 has carried, because if I remember correctly, it carried some kind of a commercial airliner as well, like tied below it. Let's see. Mi-26 carrying... I'll be dipped. They don't have a picture of this, man. This is crazy to me. Like, not having a picture of this, that's outrageous. Because it was like one of the craziest pictures ever.
It looked like it was carrying some type of helicopter. If you go back up to the top images there, it was carrying, it looked like a smaller helicopter in the cargo bay. Scroll down just slightly, and you'll see it. Like, scroll down like a couple more. Bing, bing, bing. Bing, bing, bing. And scroll down a little bit more. Bing, bing, bing. And there it is. Look, see that one right there is a picture of like a helicopter within the helicopter. Is that a plane? I can't tell.
That's a C-17. that ain't no Mi-26.
Wait a minute, is that the Mi-26 inside of the transport plane?
No, that's a Chinook inside of a C-17.
Oh, damn. They're all over the place. This is also the Indian Defense Forum, by the way. Very interesting.
Interesting, but let me see. Mi-26 carrying stuff. Maybe that's where I'll find it. Carrying stuff. Here we go. Look at that. I mean, this is crazy, man, when you think about that. This thing is so big it can carry an actual small airliner. That's bizarre.
Like, what's the point of having a helicopter that large, though, like that? Because helicopters really aren't designed to carry stuff for super long distances, are they? Like, what's the real point?
The purpose for this, I think if I remember correctly, and let me just make sure to cross-reference this with the information on Wikipedia, because if I remember correctly, doctrinally, this thing was supposed to be like a milk cow for the VDV, and that was like the entire reason for it being this big. Let's see here. Work began on a heavy lift helicopter, new design, empty, way less than, let's see, was designed to replace and act as a heavy lift helicopter for military and civil use. Let's see, was to transport military equipment such as 13-ton amphibious APCs and mobile ballistic missiles to remote locations after delivery by military transport aircraft such as the Antonov 22 or the Ilyushin 76. So this thing is supposed to be kind of like a supply cow or a really heavy lifter for the Russian armed forces in remote places where an aircraft wouldn't have enough cleared area to be able to take off or land. So this is kind of the purpose for the thing.
Very interesting. It seems like at some point, though, it seems like the Russians and all these like dictatorships, they like to start getting in a pissing contest, for lack of better words. I hate that term at this point because of one particular YouTuber, but they seem like they get in a pissing contest to like create the bigger aircraft, like for planes, helicopters, and whatever it is, just to like one up the other one. And it seems kind of like that. This thing is so large, it's literally like a ladder going up the side of the thing. I just noticed that back there near the red stars, like some type of like, it looks like a built-in ladder crawling up to the top. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a ladder for maintenance guys to be able to get up to the engines. You know, like it's like that's that freaking big.
Nuts.
Yeah, it's insane. It is the biggest helicopter ever made in the world in serial production. That's how big this thing is. It crazily enough actually isn't the nuttiest thing that the Soviets ever made, because they also made these things, not to go on a rabbit hole here, but they made this thing called the Caspian Sea Monster, or an Akronoplan, and these things were freaking crazy. Let me see if I can find... Here we go. This is the one they actually built. It's just rotting now, I think. I don't know where this thing is, actually. Let's see here. This is the beached one. It's the only one that they made, by the way. But this thing was made, just to give you an idea, to rapidly fly just feet above the waves and in the ocean, and to be able to conduct maritime patrols. And it could fly the speed of a jet, so it could go about like 400, 500 miles per hour, pretty much at sea level. But it was also carrying, and this is the nuttiest part of it, the same anti-ship missiles that the Moskva cruiser was carrying when it sank.
Very interesting. It looks like something out of Star Wars that you'd see like in a Star Wars movie or something. And it looks totally impractical as well.
It was totally impractical, man. And I'm trying to see if I can show y'all something of this. Here's a scale model of it to show y'all what this thing actually looked like. It was bizarre. It was absolutely crazy. But it used something I think called the ground effect, which means that there's like a little cushion of air below you if you're traveling at a fast enough speed to be able to make this thing work. It would float like a float plane until it took off, and then the ground effect would keep it just a few feet above the surface of the water. They ended up abandoning it though because this thing could only operate in the calmest of sea conditions, which pretty much never existed anywhere in real life practice, but it still was a pretty wild kind of a weapon that they tried to create, and it never really went anywhere. So they ended up going back to conventional vessels, and then they went back to the garbage they have today. So, didn't really work for them. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address the whole Soviet monster machines thing fairly well, because they made loads of them like in every single category, like trains, planes, even like road vehicles. They made monster road vehicles. It's just that most of them never really lived into the modern day, unless you were talking about the Topol-M nuclear missile carrier. That's like the only one that did, and the Mi-26 as well. But with that, we are now going to be moving on from the area of Moscow and that massive fire, that airfield, and we're going to be moving on over into something that's a little interesting, something that brings a lot of questions to people. The victory plan. Now, we have finally been able to hear today the victory plan that was given to the United States government that the U.S. government said they didn't really have a lot of confidence in, and we finally got to hear the entire victory plan given to the public today by Zelensky. And we were able to hear a couple of interesting criteria about this thing, about the plan. And a lot of people have been saying that the U.S. is skeptical, and we've already known that for a little bit, of Zelensky's claim of North Korean troops in Ukraine. And a lot of people are wondering, are the Ukrainians lying? Are they? I mean, we don't know. We really don't know. Is Budanov once again coming out with something that may be a bit of a farce, or is this something legitimate and the United States just doesn't know about it yet? But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. And also, by the way, I had to get this poll in before we moved on to our next segment, because I have a poll on that one as well. So thank you, Enforcer, for pivoting over to this one so quickly. But anyways, the poll says the U.S. is skeptical of Zelensky's claim of North Korean troops in Ukraine. And the big question is, do you think Ukraine's lying? Because the U.S. is very skeptical of it. And right now, we're really not sure. So about 62% said no, the U.S. is just slow to react to it, while 19% said we need more intel first. And 10% said yes, Ukraine is jumping the gun on it. So right now, based on what we're hearing, Zelensky's saying that North Korean troops are currently in Ukraine, a whole unit of them are currently in Ukraine, and we have a number around 3,000 or so. We're also hearing from South Korea, they're saying that troops are probably already in Ukraine as well. So we have multiple reports coming in that North Korean troops are indeed on the ground in Ukraine, fighting on Russia's behalf. And the U.S. will admit, they do say that the support troops are in Ukraine already, but they are very skeptical about the claims of fighting troops being in Ukraine. So honestly, I would say the U.S. is probably just being slow to react to it. So I'm with the 62%. I would say this as well. The U.S. probably doesn't want to have to respond to the North Koreans if they are indeed sending troops to Ukraine, because that would probably provoke a U.S. response of some sort. And what better way to avoid having to respond than simply denying it's actually happening? So that could also be the case as well. But ultimately, I am with the 62%. And also, the Enforcer is returning from a small break. So, Enforcer, are you back? Okay, so the Enforcer is making his way back in just a second here. But anyways, like I said, about 62% said the U.S. is just slow to react to it, and I would have to agree with you on that one. But the Enforcer is making his way back right now, and hopefully he is indeed back. So, Enforcer, are you there?
Am now, and sorry about that, everyone. I had to go take care of something really quickly behind the scenes just to make sure that the stream could keep running. Coffee does crazy things to the bladder sometimes, but beyond that, I would have to say that the United States is maybe slow to react to it, because according to all the information we have at the moment, the South Koreans are saying the North Koreans are in Ukraine, the Ukrainians are saying that the North Koreans are in Ukraine. Everyone who would be involved with the North Koreans being in Ukraine are saying they're in Ukraine, except for America. So in my opinion, I would have to be entirely entirely honest, I believe that the North Koreans probably are in Ukraine, and the United States is just slow to react to it, or may not have proper intelligence at the moment to be able to corroborate that or not. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, from at least what we know. And also, I see some people saying, oh, dang, they're like, he's at the restroom. I was hoping that Matthew would be able to filibuster long enough, but then you're like, are you there? And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not there, man. I was like, I was going to tell you, I was going to text you back.
Man, I was trying my damnedest, man. I was trying to filibuster as long as I could, but I only had so much to say. So I was like, damn, I hope he's coming back because I ain't got nothing left to say about this.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. I'm telling you what. But still, with that, we are now going to be moving on from the little bit of tidbit of information that we have about the North Koreans. And we're actually going to be moving on into Kyiv really quickly, because this is something of a conversation street topic that we've had today. If we've ever had one, this is it. Because today we were finally able to hear, released to the public, the Ukrainian victory plan. And this is something that a lot of people have been waiting for and kind of wondering about really for about a week and a half, ever since the United States government said that he didn't really have a lot of confidence in the victory plan. And we were finally able to hear it today. So I'm going to give you all our recap summary that we were able to get from Twitter of the victory plan. I did read it in greater detail, but this seems to recap it fairly well. So here are the 5 points of victory, and there were also 3 secret editions. So I guess we're going to get those in some sort of a DVD release later, but we do have the 5 points that have been publicly listed at the moment. So let me read these off to y'all. The first point of victory is for the invitation of Ukraine into NATO immediately. While that may create World War III, the NATO request has to go through immediately. And while NATO also says that the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian military also have some very concerning corruption issues still that have to be addressed before they can join NATO, that still has to happen immediately. The second one is defense. So they want more defense production inside of Ukraine, and they also want more weapons and more guns from Western partners. The third point is that Ukraine proposes to deploy on its territory a comprehensive non-nuclear strategic deterrence package, which will be sufficient to protect Ukraine from any military threat from Russia. Pretty much saying that they want the military to be souped up enough that they could obliterate the Russians even without nuclear weapons. The fourth one is economic, but the economic principle of the victory plan is just more sanctions on the Russians, which some of these sanctions are almost redundant, like limiting oil prices and exports, which largely has been done as much as physically can possibly happen so far. And the fifth point is, or the fifth pint, as a War Translator put it, which I think is a pretty good way of putting it, is after the war, we will have one of the most experienced military contingents. People with military experience with international weapons. This is a guarantee of security in Europe, and this is a worthy mission for our heroes. And then there was 3 additional secret editions that no one got to hear. But something that I do have to say is that this is a very interesting victory plan. Largely, and I'm going to have to be honest, largely because it really doesn't lay out what victory conditions they're looking for at all. Like, we don't really know, because the victory plan is supposed to say we need to reach these requirements, like conditions for victory, and then this is what life is going to look like when the war is over. These are the things that we're going to be doing. That's what an American victory plan would always look like in every single conflict. Like, for example, World War II. We had a pretty clear victory plan for what would happen to Germany at the end of World War II before it was even over. We generally do that every single time. Like, we do that when we go into Afghanistan. We have a victory plan. Once we overthrow the Taliban government in Afghanistan back in the early 2000s, what was our plan going to be for rebuilding Afghanistan from the ground up? Did that really work 20 years later? Not really, but at least we had the plan. This, to me, doesn't really seem to lay out those conditions. Like, out of these 5 points and the 3 secret ones, we don't really know what the victory conditions are. Like, we already have heard before in the past that the Ukrainians want to regain all of their 1991 borders and territories that they've had since 1991, but that should be clearly stated in a victory plan as well, because that's the point of the victory plan, is to say we plan on having all of our territory back from our 1991 borders, and then here's how we plan on reintegrating these territories back into Ukraine, and also rebuilding war-afflicted regions in Ukraine, and also critical heavy industry and other kinds of light industry. That would be a typical kind of a victory plan. What this is sort of laying out is it's not really a victory plan. It's more of a war plan, which we've talked about a little bit in the past. It's not really laying out how they would want to win or what they would consider a victory. It's more so more weapons, more guns, and we don't really know what the defined parameters of a victory is. It's just that we're going to keep fighting for a victory, and we don't even know what that would look like yet. So
Well, Enforcer, what makes this kind of worse as well is the reason why Zelensky was supposed to be coming up with this victory plan. The whole reason it was created in the first place is because the U.S. administration and officials had asked Zelensky to draft it up so that way he could present that to the U.S., and that would further justify more future support for Ukraine in the future, meaning money, aid, and equipment. And the whole purpose of it was to basically tell the Congress and the United States, here's what Ukraine is going to do X, Y, and Z to accomplish its goals of fighting Russia and pushing it out of its territory, and this is how they're going to achieve it. I don't want to go as far as to say Zelensky was being a smartass with doing this victory plan right here, but it certainly seems a little bit odd that pretty much every point within his victory plan was, you need to do this and that and this for Ukraine, or otherwise we're not going to win. He didn't basically take any responsibility for what he needs to do to win the war in his plan. And considering that the plan was directed specifically for the United States officials to know what Zelensky was going to do to win the war, that seems like a huge failure on Zelensky's part with his plan, because it could be viewed as sort of like thumbing their nose at the United States a little bit. I'm not sure if that was the objective behind it, but it could be argued that's what it looks like, because like I said, we don't know what's in the three secret aspects of this plan, but unless they spell out exactly how they plan to win on the battlefield and when they expect to achieve certain objectives, like pushing Russians back to this point or that point or this point, we have no clue whatsoever what they really intend on doing to win the thing. So it really says nothing in actuality.
I would have to agree. It really doesn't. I've got to be entirely honest with y'all. This is about as shoddy a victory plan as can be made. I kind of see why very rarely, I'll tell y'all this, very rarely do we agree with the U.S. government's assessment of the situation in Ukraine. But I would actually have to agree with the U.S. government on this assessment that this is a very lackluster victory plan here. And also on top of that, it's not really outlining how Ukraine sees itself winning the war. It really outlines how they want us to kind of win it for them. Like, the first point is entirely on us. Get them into NATO immediately. And we've already made that very clear that that is a no-go. That will never happen while this war is going on. The war will have to end before they get into NATO. So this point is already stricken straight off the bat. That's not a victory plan. On top of that, that's not really a victory either, because just to put this out there, the whole reason they're not getting into NATO right now is because there's an ongoing war. NATO doesn't take new members that are currently involved and embroiled in a war, whether they started it or not. And the other thing is that just expands the conflict from Ukraine to the entirety of Europe. So that's not really winning the war. That's honestly just kind of expanding it to the entirety of the continent and not really achieving anything for anyone. The second one is that they need to ramp up war production and also get even more weapons from the West. That's something that doesn't really sound like, like victory, to be entirely honest. Just to put this out there, we have already given a massive amount of support to Ukraine. We're still supporting them. We approved another $500 million of military support today for Ukraine. And for some reason, we need to ramp up even more aid to Ukraine. I'll be honest, it just doesn't really seem like that makes a lot of sense. Also, what is it for? How is the victory going to be achieved? Some people may be saying this sounds really critical, and maybe it is, but still, this isn't really a good victory plan. It's just not a well-made one. And we've said this before on the channel, before this even came out, that if it's just asking for more weapons and more guns and not telling us what these would be contributing towards, this isn't a victory plan, this is a war plan. And then the third point
It's almost like Zelensky misunderstood. It's almost like Zelensky misunderstood the assignment or something, because, the U.S. requested this. And one thing that we do know for a fact, I see some people in the live chat saying, well, we don't know what's in the three classified parts of it, and that could be the part we're looking for. It can't be, because the U.S. administration got to see the classified parts that Ukraine has presented to their Verkhovna Rada, and they said it was not acceptable whatsoever. That's what the U.S. said. And currently, the U.S. administration currently in office is very favorable to Ukraine, so they'd be giving them the benefit of the doubt on the plan. And even they're saying that plan's really not that great, and we really need some other plan to really present to Congress and justify Ukraine's support. So this one right here, like Zelensky really should like revise this plan and send a new one in reality, because if he's going to start doing it like this, if he didn't misunderstand the assignment, he risks pissing off the U.S. officials that are supplying aid to his country, and that could be detrimental because basically, like this entire plan that he wrote right here basically says, Ukraine relies almost 100% on Western support to win this war, and if they piss off the West, then they're screwed. So this was very crucial to get this right, and it seems like, in my opinion, Zelensky kind of got it wrong.
I would have to say, I would have to largely agree, and I see people either agreeing with us or disagreeing with us in the chat, and I do have to say that largely, no one's really seeming to believe that this is a good idea. And while the U.S. government's always reluctant about everything these days, I will have to say on this one, I think it's not that good. Like it's not that good. We need to know what their actual victory conditions are. That's the plan. Like the victory plan are the victory conditions. So what do they consider to be victory? That's what we need to know, and we're not really getting to know that at the moment. We're just kind of getting to hear the kind of phrase more money and more guns, but we're not really knowing how much more money and how much more guns would really be needed in a practical scenario to achieve the actual victory conditions. A victory condition or a victory plan would look something along the lines. Let me lay out what I would say a victory plan will look like. The Ukrainians lay out what territories they must get back, what territories they might be willing to give up, if any. If they're not willing to give up any, then they restore their 1991 borders, and that is a victory condition. They also would lay out their plan for economic rebuilding and also a reintegration of the Russian occupied areas, because that is a big one. That is a huge one, and a lot of people don't know this, but an area that has been occupied by the Russians for years, the civil administration in these areas is going to be corrupt to the core. There's going to be a large amount of bureaucratic and governmental inefficiency, and there's also possibly even going to be resentment against the Ukrainians returning, possibly, if for some reason there was a great deal of sympathizers in the occupied areas. All of that would have to be dealt with once the Ukrainians got this land back. So not only would a victory condition be the return of certain lands, it would also be the reintegration of those lands into Ukraine. Another thing would be the kind of economic support that they believe would be required, or the kind of economic abilities that they would be able to output after the war, which would also be a very big part of a victory plan. And finally, the last thing would be security concerns, because while that would seem like a forefront thing, they kind of have to lay out how they will even win, so that way security concerns with NATO can end up being an option. And of course, they could join then, but they also kind of need to make this clear, because just to make this very clear to everyone, the entirety of everyone at NATO said this, that the Ukrainian military and the government is still too corrupt to join NATO at the moment. And while they have made massive efforts and massive reforms over the past 8 years, it is not up to a NATO standard. And I know a lot of people are going to be saying something like, what about Hungary? Hungary joined and met NATO standards. At the time, they met them. So they were able to join. If they start to degrade afterwards, that's an internal NATO matter. But as far as Ukraine is concerned, to join, you have to be able to jump over that initial hurdle. And no one in NATO really seems to believe that they are capable of jumping over that initial hurdle at the moment, which is a major serious concern, because if they join NATO as a partner and they're inside of the alliance, that corruption can begin to spread. You generally have to have a very strong anti-corruption campaign and create a non-corrupt armed force, and really a non-corrupt civilian government as well, because the entire thing has to be about as clean as it can possibly be. It won't be perfect, but it still will be a lot better than what it is, and then they can join NATO. So they have to also lay out kind of a plan on how the anti-corruption campaigns are going to be waged to be able to clear out these unsavory elements and to be able to get the Ukrainians and the armed forces up to standard to be able to get into NATO. So those are kind of all the things that we really would want to look for in a victory plan, and this victory plan didn't really lay out any of that.
Also, Enforcer, I do see some people saying in the live chat here, they're saying maybe Zelensky's just simply war fatigued, and maybe he's also getting fatigued of trying to ask the West to get more support, and then they kind of like stall for a little while, they sort of hold him up a little bit, and then they finally send a little bit, but not everything he was asking for. The truth is, if Zelensky is getting that tired, now I will say this, we got to give Zelensky a lot of credit. So far, he has been handling this entire situation very well. He was thrown right in the midst of it, the war started, and he's handled it very well. But if he is getting to the point where he really doesn't feel like handling the West anymore, and also it's getting very fatiguing to him, he should consider maybe letting someone else take the reins, because these type of missteps like this with his victory plan will ultimately hurt Ukraine severely, and they can't afford that right now. So I don't know if maybe Zelensky should maybe like delegate this to someone else to handle it and sort of take a back seat to it, or what. Or simply just revise it and make it where it makes sense, where it actually has a plan in here. Because this ultimately, depending on all the U.S. officials, and I think y'all know what I mean, we're about to have a change here. This needs to be right, because otherwise the naysayers to Ukraine's support are going to get a much stronger argument for trying to argue against Ukraine, which would be detrimental to fighting the war against Russia. So this has to be gotten right, and hopefully Zelensky changes it up and also corrects it pretty soon.
And also, I see some people asking, what does corruption even look like in Ukraine? And then people also start pointing fingers and saying America is more corrupt than Ukraine. Let me put this out there really quickly, because I think a lot of people miss the context here. In America, you can't go up to, say, a U.S. Army officer and go, hey, I'd like my son to be taken care of in the Army. I'm going to pay you 10 grand, and can you make sure that he's promoted to like E5 immediately, please? And then he goes, sure thing. And then he just gets your son into the military, straight through basic training, has him treated like a prince, and then bumps him up to E5. Things like that happen in the Ukrainian military to this day. There are open corruption issues that through the war, the Ukrainian central government has been trying to deal with, because they are still on an anti-corruption campaign that existed pre-war. Like, these things go on a great deal. There's also a pretty serious deal with the Ukrainian border guards, which, while they are a part of the Ministry of the Interior, they're technically considered a paramilitary force under the command of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense at the moment. And from what we know, you can pay border guards really any amount of money as long as they're willing to accept it, and they will stamp your passport to cross the border even if you're not allowed to. That's the kind of corruption that exists in Ukraine. And while y'all can say that corruption exists in America that might be like that, like insider trading and other things like that, in Ukraine, it truly is impervious on almost every level. And while they've been trying to deal with it, it still is a good ways away from being fixed. That's kind of the thing that people do not know. And it's kind of a bit of an issue. That's not to say that Ukraine is an irredeemable country not worthy of support. That is to say, though, that they do have a ways to go. A little bit of a ways to go to be able to get up to a good standard that will be able to join NATO, because that kind of corruption can end up starting to bring the whole house down. That's really kind of the way it goes. But nevertheless, a lot of people have weighed in on this, and it does seem as though a decent amount of people are seeing that either the plan needs some work or it's just not really acceptable as a whole. But Matthew, what are people saying, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this is a very contentious topic. We knew this going into it. This conversation was going to be somewhat contentious because, of course, I actually understand where a lot of y'all are coming from. When we talk about Zelensky, it's hard to really criticize or really anything like that, because he's under very big duress right now trying to handle this war situation. Like I said, he's done a really good job of it, but ultimately, though, he still is a public servant, and he has to do the job properly, or else his people will pay the price. So the big question is, what are your thoughts on this victory plan? So about 35% said it seems good, but it needs more work. And about 21% said the plan is 100% airtight and good, while 26% said the plan is not acceptable, and 18% were unsure. And honestly, I do see the plan good. It does outline the need for Western support, but that is not a plan. So in my opinion, I'm actually with the 27%. The plan is not acceptable, like I've said. He needs to revise and actually come up with deadlines, give Ukraine deadlines to meet certain goals, so that way it can inspire confidence in the U.S. Congress to keep funding Ukraine into the future. They need that confidence right now more than ever to ensure the U.S. will keep supporting Ukraine in their war effort. So I agree with the 26 or 27%. But enforce what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would have to agree with the 35%. It's okay, but it does need work. They need to start clarifying things that I was talking about a little while ago that would really help out a great deal on giving people an idea of what they will actually be doing to win and what they'll be doing to be able to get into NATO. Because to say this, and I'm saying, and a lot of people, and I'm seeing this, and I kind of have to address this really quickly. A lot of people, for some reason, whenever you say anything that may be a fair criticism of Ukraine, although you can be pro-Western, pro-American, and for that reason pro-Ukrainian, some people take it that if you have any criticism at all, you just hate them now, and that's really stupid. You can have criticisms and not hate someone, so just putting that out there, we're not hating on Ukraine, but there are some fair criticisms here. They need to outline what's actually going to be done to win. And really quickly to show you all this, because maybe some people know this or not, but there is a corruption perceptions index, and the index is published by a non-governmental organization called Transparency International, and they've been doing this since 1995. And this is currently what their last snapshot, at least their own independent reporting of the corruption index, looks like. Corruption will always exist. Just to make that very clear to everyone, corruption will always exist at some level of the government. But there is a certain amount of corruption that is acceptable or good, and then there's an incredibly high amount of corruption where it becomes unacceptable and the country collapses. And you can see that the world is pretty well represented, at least in this graph here, and pretty much shows just about every single country and how they perceive the corruption to be. Now, to show you all this, because I know so many people are saying, oh, the United States is corrupt too. Oh my God. We're actually kind of on up there. Like, we're not perfect. We're at number 25. The United Kingdom is at number 23, so they're hardly beating us. But it's not bad. You know, it's not an unacceptable amount of corruption. It's not perfect. And I will admit, you know, being from Alabama, you see that's not perfect pretty much firsthand. But it still is not that bad. But if we go further and further down the list, you will see that some of the other countries are not necessarily that high. To be able to try and find y'all, and let me see if I can find it here. So let's scroll back up the list, because we got to find two specifically. Ukraine and Russia. So let's see where Ukraine and Russia are. So there's Ukraine, and then let's see where the Russian Federation is on this list. I think it's lower than Ukraine, but I did not see it. Let's see here. There it is. Russia is number 141 in the world. It's down almost near the direct bottom. Like, it's not that great. Russia is literally sandwiched. Let me make sure that I can find them again. Let's see here. There they are. Russia is sandwiched in between Kyrgyzstan and Uganda on the corruption index. It's not doing that good. But if you go up the list a little bit, you will see that Ukraine is a good ways up there compared to Russia. It's actually at number 104, about 40 spots above. It's obviously less corrupt than the Russian Federation. At a time, though, at the end of the Soviet Union, both of them were pretty much par on par. They were about as corrupt as each other because they were both a part of the Soviet system. But due to a massive wave of anti-corruption campaigns that have been ongoing for about the past 10 years inside of Ukraine, things have improved massively. And they are on the up and up. You can actually see right here, they're moving pretty quickly every single time this measure is made. But they still have
Who's the least corrupt on this chart, by the way? Like, who's the least corrupt? I'm just curious. Who's the least corrupt and the most corrupt? Okay, Denmark, Finland, New Zealand, Norway. Okay, I might be able to agree with that. Who's the most corrupt on the chart?
The most corrupt on the chart would be Somalia. And you just completely cut out, Matthew. I can hear you out there, but I can't hear you on the mic. Man, Matthew is just going to town out there, and I can't hear a word he's saying. Hello, Matthew? Hello? Hello? Well, he's just still going, and I can hear him out there. I don't know if y'all can hear him. Y'all probably can't, but Matthew is still talking, and the mic isn't picking him up at all. So, Matthew, hello? You there? Eventually we will get Matthew back, but in the meantime, while Matthew is gone, like he's talking out there because I can hear him out there on his microphone talking, but I can't hear him in the studio. I can say this though, this corruption graph is pretty decent. Like, it's not bad because Yemen, North Korea, South Sudan, Syria, and Somalia, and Venezuela obviously would have the worst corruption. I don't think anyone could disagree with that. But of course, Ukraine has a little bit of a ways to go. And we can finally hear you, Matthew. Yeah, you're finally back.
Oh, thank God. Man, this Wi-Fi sucks, man. I do not recommend the 5G internet to nobody. Like, just a side note for a minute, do not get 5G internet. It sucks. I've never seen, like, worse reliability than with any internet. This is worse than some of the Spectrum internet that we've dealt with. This is no good.
And it's actually pretty freaking bad. Like, he just cuts out, and I don't even know if you knew that, Matthew, because you were just out there talking, and I was like, he's still talking, and I can't hear a word he's saying.
Oh, I was panicking. I was out here panicking. I was trying to get it restarted. I restarted Discord. I was clicking everything. I pressed escape 50 times. It wasn't working.
Man, I'm telling you what, that's not great. But also, another thing, to show you all this, okay, so let me put this out there. Let us find the lowest NATO member on the totem pole. So Ukraine is 104, so if they have to be the least corrupt by NATO standards, well, they have to be uncorrupt enough by NATO standards. What would that be according to this index? So let's scroll up the list, and let's see if we can find the first country that would be on this list. So, Hungary at 76. So they have to move up another 20 spots, which at the current speed they're moving at, that means they'll probably do that in about the next 2 years, and then they will be finally up to an acceptable standard to be able to join NATO. That appears to be the case. So it's not an unachievable goal, but at the same time, we have standards around here, folks. NATO doesn't run off of a, oh, well, maybe they're corrupt, but we'll let them in kind of a standard. We have pretty decent, stringent standards, and we're not going to start bending standards just because we want someone in. Like, that's not ever how it's going to work. I don't think that's how it should work. And I think NATO is pretty fairly within their right to say they have a bit of a ways to go before they can get into NATO. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, because, it is only my opinion. Also, someone said Turkey is worse. Is Turkey worse than... Let me go pull up the corruption index again. Corruption.
Hell, it should be worse. Turkey's horrible. Like, just even on a diplomacy level, they're not trustworthy.
So let's see here. Let me scroll down and let me see if we can find Turkey. So let's go over here. So Turkey. We are looking for Turkey. Yep, they actually are. Yeah. Well, hell, they should be able to join NATO then, because if they're lower on the corruption index, then Ukraine should be able to join. I don't know. I was going off of the Hungary standard, because Hungary is actually way up there. It's at 76. But apparently, yeah, Ukraine is on up above Turkey. So, that has to count for something, right? Y'all did point out something good there for sure. But anyways.
If we're being real, though, like, the actual reason why Ukraine is not being allowed into NATO is because, like we all know, the U.S. and the West is actually scared of Russia, even though we found out their military is no good, because, of course, they have nuclear weapons. That's the real honest reason. There's honestly, in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion, there's no amount of corruption in Ukraine that would prevent them from joining NATO. They could always fix that as they go after they join the organization, because like we said, if Turkey is in there and they are untrustworthy as hell, like the whole government in Turkey is very untrustworthy, and they're in NATO, and they're doing things actively to hurt the alliance right now, and they're still in it. So Ukraine is helping the alliance and helping build our security, but yet we won't allow them in it. It's just because we're scared of Russia, and that's the bottom line.
That's true. I would agree with that. Also, really quickly, we can actually see that the corruption index is from 2012 to 2019, and this one's from 2020 to 2023. So Ukraine is actually moving up leaps and bounds. They moved up about 20 spots in between the last survey and this one, so they should be able to join NATO, anytime soon. But I still feel, though, that a pretty decent commitment to anti-corruption campaigns kind of has to be made clear, though, in a victory plan. I feel like that's kind of a necessity to show that the corruption will continue to be fought against. And I'll be honest with y'all, this is something I'm a little bit of a fan of. I think we need to start reconsidering whether Turkey needs to be in NATO or not, and if there's a way to maybe get them out or move them on along, because they're not necessarily the greatest member. They are wildly corrupt, and not only that, they are conducting actions that are inherently against NATO interests and Western interests as a whole, so I'm not really a big fan of them being in there. Maybe that's why we're having that high of a standard, but Matthew is also correct. This really is the big reason. A country cannot join NATO in the middle of a war. That's clearly outlaid in the NATO charter. They just can't, and they're currently involved in a war, so that immediately stops them from being able to join. The other thing is that they are fighting the Russian Federation, which is a nuclear-armed power, and while their army can be curb-stomped, if a nuclear missile starts flying, that is largely a game-over situation for everyone. Not a lot of people are going to be surviving that about a year later, so going off of that, we kind of want to make sure to keep this a little bit on the down low and not escalate it too rapidly, because getting Ukraine into NATO, as soon as they get in and the war is still going, Zelensky tries to activate Article 5, and if it is activated, now it's just turned into a world war, quite literally. Almost everyone in the world at that point is at war with the Russians. So that's maybe not a good idea to try and escalate it to that point, because if you thought that the war in Ukraine's pretty bad, I think a lot of people would agree a nuclear exchange, because the Russians got curb stomped so badly, that was their last resort, would probably be even worse. So that would be my take on it, and just my simple take. I can be wrong, and I'll admit that that's a possibility, but that would be my opinion on it. But still, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And moving on from the victory plan really quickly and on over into Korea, we have also been able to hear that apparently the trip has been canceled, according to Yonhap News, and as this loads, I want to make sure that we get the name correct, top military officer, and I believe this is actually the guy who is pretty much the chief of staff of the Korean Armed Forces. I think that's the fellow that they're talking about. They didn't really go into a lot of detail about his exact name or position, but based off the amount of stars that he has on his on his collar, I would assume that he's probably the head honcho of the Korean Armed Forces. I don't know the exact name of that in Korean terminology, but still, he has once again canceled trip, showing that the tensions are, of course, high, and giving us a little bit of a continuation to show that tensions are extreme on the Korean Peninsula at the moment. But moving on from that and out of that area and down towards Yemen, we have been able to hear that a U.S. airstrike has been conducted in this area today, with B-2 Spirits being involved in the strike. We were able to see a picture of one right here. Look at that thing. Ain't it gorgeous?
Man, it's gorgeous. And also, by the way, we just got video of it returning as well, if you want to take a look at our Twitter page, by the way.
Oh, for real? For real?
We got video, man. I'm telling you what, I love to see those things flying. And we got some, look at that. Whiteman Air Force Base, return from strike to Libya. Look at that.
This was in 2017, though.
Are you sure?
It says it right there. It is believed to have been the bombing of a training camp near the coastal city of Sirte in Libya on January 18th of 2017.
Enforcer, read the first sentence. It says the last combat mission is believed to be the ISIS training camp near that site on 2017.
Well, yeah, but at the beginning of the video, Matthew, it says return from strike in Libya, Whiteman Air Force Base, 19th of January 2017.
Come on, man.
I mean, we can watch it.
I was trying to hold out hope, man. Let's watch it anyway. I want to see it. Come on, please.
This is not recent footage. I need to put that out there. This is a bit old, but still, it is pretty neat to see these things landing.
This is all I wanted, man. I just wanted to see it. Look at that. Oh man, that's a beautiful bird.
I can't wait to see the B-21 Raiders in service.
Listen to that sound. Look
Man,
at that.
listen to them. And we just see them rolling around out there. Look at them. Ain't they cute?
That is so cute, man. Those things are massive, by the way. They're like they look kind of small, like when I've always seen them in pictures, but they're huge.
Man, they're just so weird. I mean, they really are like weird looking on a side profile like that right there. They just look like a bird.
You know, I think this thing right here, I'm not really sure because I don't know any pilots in the Air Force right now, but I think this is considered a very prestigious assignment to fly this thing because it's, I know it's a bomber, so it's kind of slow. It's not like a fighter jet, so it's not that fun, but they get to control potentially nuclear weapons being dropped out of the thing, so that's a huge responsibility.
They are incredibly cool. I think it actually is a prestigious role in the Air Force to be assigned to one of these things. Because I believe the security clearances you have to get through are pretty severe, I believe, if I'm correct on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, yeah, these things are incredibly cool, though. Spirit of Pennsylvania.
Is it true that it's modeled after the Horton Ho?
No, actually these things are modeled after the YB-49, which was a design that failed back in the day. That this is what it's actually designed after, like the engineering behind it and stuff.
But this one right here was designed after the Horton Ho. Like, we took inspiration from that Horton, didn't we?
No, that's like a huge misnomer put out by like folks on like the History Channel. Did the Nazis learn from ancient aliens? And
that's
then
where
we
I heard
learned
it.
from them? Yeah, like
where I heard it too.
No, man, we did not learn anything from the Horton 229. Like the Horton 229 was neat and it was like a subject of study, but this thing actually came out of let's see, let me make sure that I get the guy's name correct. Jack Northrop's design innovations and stuff like that. Let me see if I can actually show you his flying wing. Because his flying wing existed before the Horton brothers' flying wing. So let me see. That's not it. Let's see. I need to find the freaking flying wing design that he made. Okay, so let me just go here, and maybe this will have. Here we go. This right here. This was Jack Northrop's first flying wing.
Now you gotta start somewhere. It looks like something that might be like something for hobbyists or something like that. Like they might just go to the beach with it.
Yeah, actually, this was like kind of like the test bed for just like the airfoil of a flying wing, and it worked. So then Jack Northrop tried to upscale it by creating the YB-35 a little bit later on, which was the propeller-driven version of the YB-49. So this was the first attempt. But the problem is that the turboprops were very complicated at the time mechanically. costly to maintain, so it was really expensive. And on top of that, it seemed that it would be a lot easier to use the new technology, which was jet engines instead, to be able to make this thing a lot more usable, or at least a lot more easier to field. So then they created the YB-49, which is the jet-powered version of that flying wing. The United States ended up making, I think, 20 of these. Let's see here. 3 converted from the YB-35. Actually, there was only a few of them. I remember something, though, about there was a decent number of them. But nevertheless, one of them crashed. The U.S. government didn't really like these things because they weren't fast, and they really couldn't fly, I believe, if I remember correctly, at really high altitudes, and speed was kind of the important thing at the time. But one thing that was cool about the YB-49, though, and it didn't even matter at the time to anyone, which is crazy, is that this thing had no radar cross-section hardly. It was almost invisible on radar. It had a very, very small cross-section, but that didn't matter because at the time, the entire emphasis was on speed of the bombers and not their ability to carry an incredibly large payload, and not only that, for them to have a low radar cross-signature. But later on down the line, after this thing got scrapped, I think in the very late 40s, they revisited the concept, and then that's when they designed the B-2 Spirit, and it was largely designed out of all of the lessons learned from the YB-49, the YB-35, and that MM-1 that I showed you just a second ago.
Very interesting. And also, by the way, is Jack Northrop, is he the Northrop in Northrop Grumman, I would assume?
Is. Yeah, he's that guy, man. He's the guy. Like, he's legitimately...
He is that guy.
He's that guy, pal. Like, trust me, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. He is the guy.
Interesting. Was that one of his first projects of his career or something, or was he like way into like development at that point?
I think he was way into development at that point. Let's see here. So he created the he rejoined the Lowehead brothers and worked at Lockheed. Let's see here. He worked his... Oh, he designed the Lockheed Vega? Weird. I didn't know.
Huh.
I actually didn't know that. That's cool. So let's see here.
So he worked for the competitor before he started his own. That's kind of interesting.
I think they actually encouraged him at Lockheed to go create his own company, if I remember correctly. They were just like, hey, go do your own thing, man.
That was a different time in America when they wanted competition.
Yeah, they were like, hey, go do your own thing, man. Have fun. Let's see. In 1929, he struck out on his own, founded the Avion Corporation. He was, backed by Donald Douglas, founded the Northrop Corporation in El Segundo, California. And they built the Northrop Gamma. Oh, man. That thing's actually kind of cool. I'm not going to lie.
They really put a lot of work into making it look pretty clean. Like, I like the way they put coverings over pretty much everything.
Yeah, I love the cowlings. And then Northrop Delta. Okay, that's actually pretty cool, man. I like that one. I've never seen it before either.
That's like that plane off that little Disney or that little cartoon, of like the World War II plane looking for a job and stuff like that with a family. It's that one.
Dude, it literally is. But let's see. Also, man, have you ever seen the Black Widow? These things were legitimately cool. They were night fighters with a radar built into the nose. It was a very primitive one, though, but with the radar, this thing could find enemy aircraft and go and shoot them down, and the enemy aircraft didn't even know that the Black Widow was there.
That's pretty cool. I've seen this one before. I just didn't know what it was called, but I like that. It's pretty cool. Like the connected like tail section and stuff. I like that.
Yeah, this thing was incredibly cool. And then let's see, he created the Scorpion. These things were terrible though. Like I hate them. I think they're so dumb looking. They look like rats. But they're still kind of cool, I guess, because they're made by Northrop, so I guess that's neat. But let's see here. Then you can see the NM1, the N1M, the N9M, and then he finally made the YB-35, which was the first large-scale flying wing. But one thing I want you to know, though, one important thing, Matthew, that I have to impart upon you, so that way you just knows, is that the B-2 Spirit and the YB-49 have literally the same dimensions. Like, they have the same wingspan and length. They're literally almost the same, like in almost every way, except for the technology used to design and produce the B-2 Spirit is far more advanced than what they had for the YB-49.
And it's kind of weird too, because it looks like the B-2 might be a little bit more deep of a plane. This one looks like it might be a little bit shorter, like in depth of the length and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting, but these things are just incredibly cool, man. Like, but That's one thing I hate, though. That's one thing I absolutely hate, though, about like the whole myth put out by the History Channel is that Jack Northrop gets no credit for really like creating flying wing designs and actually making something that was usable, because the Horton 229 was never used beyond the study of it, and they were like neat, and then they threw it away. That was really what the US did with it, because we already had our own flying wings. We were just trying to see what the Germans made out of theirs. But let me see really quickly, though. I want to go back to the N1M. So this thing flew, its first flight was on the 3rd of July of 1940. So let me go to the Horton 229, since that's the wonder weapon that everyone always loves to talk about. The first flight of this thing was 4 years later in 1944. So Jack Northrop is the undefeated champion of flying wing design.
Interesting, interesting. Also, let's see here. I was also reading here. I was trying to like figure out what's the truth here. Like you're saying that the Northrop plane was not designed after the Horton, and based on what I'm reading here, it says that the Horton was actually inspired by the Northrop N9M, which predated the Horton design by a number of years. So very interesting. That was really wrong that they put out on the History Channel that show at one time.
Dude,
I don't even know why they would do that, because it looks like it definitely predates it by a lot, actually. So the Germans might have actually stole that from us.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, one thing that pisses me off in the modern day is everyone acts like the Germans were like contacting aliens and had like telepathic communications with the immaterium of the warp. Like it's like they don't. It's like they don't. They didn't do anything original. I mean, like the only thing they kind of did that was kind of cool was the rocketry stuff. And even then, we were kind of already moving down that path on our own. Like, it pisses me off, the kind of credit that America loses because of all the lies put out by these stupid fake documentaries in the modern day. America was the first to make the flying wing, and damn it, are we masters of the flying wing. We created the YB-35, the YB-49, the B-2 Spirit. We're now making the B-21 Raider. No one else has made a flying wing that actually works. We're the only people that have, and we're the only people that probably ever will. Like, that's what it is, and I'm just so tired of stupid channels like the History Channel going, let's just shit on Jack Northrop. It's like, why? It's like he was an American genius, man. Like, he was the guy who made this happen.
And also, by the way, the Germans were not the first ones to contact aliens. That was the United States, actually 10 years prior to that. So they weren't even the first to that.
Exactly. Like, it's stupid. Come on. Like, give us the credit we deserve. Like, really. But anyways, with that, before we move on, though, into the rest of the news for the night, like the rest of our Middle East news and Ukraine news, we do have to get a couple of questions because there's been a load that has come in. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our super chat segment, the first one of the night here, we have our first one that goes to Long This, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Long This, for that very generous support. And they said, guys, YouTube seems angry today, and my generic question is, why isn't Israel hitting back fast on the country in question, Iran, and the longer it takes makes Israel look beta?
And I gotta say, that is very interesting to call Israel beta, because Israel is the forefront of Chad alpha male mindsets. But beyond that, that's one of their main exports. I'm just kidding. Andrew Tate and the Romanians are actually the main exporter of the Chad alpha male mindset. But beyond that, I would have to say that the reason why it's taking a while, from what we understand, is the diplomatic finagling that's going on in the background. America doesn't want them to go hard. The Israelis want to go hard, and that's kind of the argument that's going on quietly in the background, and no one's really talking about it a lot. But every once in a while, you get a little bit of a murmur of it, and it certainly is showing that that's really what's holding it back. So that's why they're waiting a little bit. But the strike will be happening soon. It probably will be a lot more limited than what the Israelis want to do as well, because they're probably once again having to lean into very severe pressure being put on them by the United States to kind of conduct appeasement of a sort on the Iranians. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and asking a very good question along this. And I hate to hear that YouTube's angry. YouTube ends up being angry every once in a while with people saying certain things or putting certain questions in, but I hope that was able to answer that well regardless, and I thank you so much nevertheless for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, we wouldn't be able to be on air right now, and we wouldn't be able to cover the kind of news they all love to hear. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again, Long This. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I see a bunch of people in the live chat here. Also, I'm not really sure because our audience is typically a little bit on the older side. So I'm not sure if like the language here is familiar. This is like newspeak, like the beta, the sigma male, and all this stuff like that, and the skibbity toilet.
Oh
All of that is pretty much new
no.
stuff right there. It's terrible. It's honestly kind of brain rot a little bit. But unfortunately, since we are of that generation, we do know about it. So very interesting. But I would say though, in that speak there, I would say that personally, I think Israel is alpha Chad. Or Sigma male, giggity giggity, if that's how it goes. But anyways, moving on here to our next one. This one also goes to Long This, who puts in a $100 donation, the largest one
Dang.
of the night. And thank you very much, Long This, for that support. And he said, everyone says Israel dictates to the U.S., and how can this be?
I would actually have to say that's really not the case. And I'll try and explain this the best I can, because this is something that's kind of annoyed me nowadays. Is this it's this narrative that Israel controls America, and I don't really get it at all, because when you actually look at how things go, Israel doesn't really control America. We kind of control them, because that's how it works. We're the leader of the sphere, so why in the world would a minor member of the sphere be controlling us? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. But to explain why that's being said by people, this is why. The United States is 100% behind supporting Israel and giving them loads of weapons, really of any kind and variety that we can. The reason why we do that is because historically, a lot of the countries in this area were leaning more towards the Soviet Union in the Cold War than us. After the Caliphate was destroyed in the Ottoman Empire at its collapse, the Islamic world went into this massive question of what were they, and it ended up turning out that a lot of the earlier philosophers of this post-Caliphate time frame started to go under the concept that maybe a Arabic socialist world was the kind of world they wanted to move towards, and a lot of countries started to do that. And so you saw that at the time, a lot of these countries were kind of leaning a little bit more favorably towards the Soviet Union, and no one was really leaning towards the West, or America for that matter. And so that ended up concerning us a great deal at the end of World War II, because we were going, it looks like they're all going to go red, and, it's better dead than red, and the Israelis were the only ones that weren't going red. So then we said, we're going to have to give them guns, because they're like the only people in the area that seem to be hardcore on our side. This is either that or they're dead. So let's give them loads of weapons and guns. And so we ended up doing that, and we've ended up keeping that up on through the rest of history. Because if anything is a guarantee, if push came to shove, and pretty much every single one of our other allies in the area were destroyed because of major ideological differences in between Israel and the rest of their neighbors, they never would be able to go that direction. They would have to stay on our side, otherwise they might end up getting wiped out. So that's why we continue to give them a load of weapons and a load of equipment, is for that reason. However, that doesn't mean that they control us. It just means that we put our eggs into one basket in the Middle East, and that generally is always the Israeli basket. That's just kind of how it's worked ever since the end of World War II. But as far as that whole control thing goes, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it, because it's one of the conspiracy theories out there. People say that there's a certain kind of a group of people that live in Israel that control everything the world over, and those people control the U.S. government, and that's why Israel is always the number one priority, according to that group of people. That's not true in my opinion, because you can see the United States putting up dogged last stands for Taiwan, South Korea, and really Ukraine all at the same time, like we are with Israel. So it's if that was true, why is that the case? That doesn't make sense elsewhere in the world. So I find that theory to be pretty dumb, on my honest opinion. And that's why I would say that while people say that and say it like it's 100% so, it's not the case. Because at the same time, if they controlled us, why in the world is America able to browbeat them so much into always conducting limited strikes against Iran? If they controlled us, they would tell us what they're going to do, and then we would back it up 100%, and we're not doing that right now. So it clearly disproves that statement from the people who were saying that. So I hope that does address that fairly well. Also, there's a whole other thing as well. Let me see how to explain it. It kind of gets into the whole religious side of things, and I'm not going to pick a side here. I'm just going to try and explain a little bit. A lot of people in America are very strongly leaning kind of like an Israeli support because of reasons. I'm not going to even get into the reason for explaining it, but for reasons they support Israel very heavily. And then there's another group of people And the best way I can explain this is that they hate their parents. Like that. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. They hate their parents, and because their parents like Israel, they naturally have to hate it. All of the reasons they hate Israel don't really make a lot of sense. Like they say that, like they'll say something like Israel is an illegal state, although Israel was created by the United Nations. So it's like, are you saying that the United Nations, like, because they always say, look, the UN recognizes the atrocities that Israel is committing. It's like, but they were created by the United Nations. So are we saying that they're wrong? Are we saying that Britain was wrong? And are we saying that the Ottoman Empire was wrong for selling the land to these people in the first place back in the 1880s? It's like, are we saying that they're all wrong? It's like that's really stupid to say. Like, that's maybe the best way I can put it. But that's kind of the best way I can explain it. Because I know one thing, like, just to put this out there, when I say some of these people hate their parents, Hot Dog Man hates both of his parents, the real ones and the adopted ones, with a passion. And from what we know, they both support Israel. And so then he just ends up being against Israel for like incoherent reasons. Really just, I guess, because his parents like Israel, so he has to hate it. I don't know. Like, that's one thing that we've seen
He
just
just
on like
hates authority figures is the bottom line, like with him. He just hates any authority figures. Anything that says no to like stuff that you shouldn't be involved in, he's gonna hate it.
Yeah, and also another thing that has to do with people not liking Israel in America has to do a good bit with like in this sound, like, I have to say this, like, this is kind of like a little bit overdone in my opinion nowadays, kind of like everything is, but this is honestly true. A lot of people are just against Israel because they're anti-Semitic. That's like the best way I can say it. They just don't like Jews, so they hate Israel because it's a Jewish state, which is also really stupid because for America, ideologically, on a governmental level, we really don't care, like, and I really don't care either. It's really about strategic interest, and that's kind of the big point. But for some people in America, they end up making it largely a deal of anti-Semitism, and that's what you'll see a lot in the counter-Israeli protest here in America, is that it's not necessarily that they like the Palestinians, it's really just more so that they hate the Jews living in Israel, and then it ends up being really just an anti-Semitic thing than really anything else. And then it's also not in our strategic interest either, so it's kind of a little bit goofy overall. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can, at least in my opinion, along this, because it's a good question, and I hope that I answer that as effectively as physically possible, while also not trying to step on too many toes, because I'm sure people are going to get offended by that somehow. But then that means that's why we have the ban button. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best we can. We are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting back into the news, because we still have loads of news to cover, and we are already going to start going overtime on the news segment. So Matthew, what is the last question of this segment?
All right, and believe it or not, Long This got all 3 super chats of the first segment here. He threw in another even bigger donation, and we really appreciate this, Long This. He said it's a $150 donation. Thank you very much for that humongous support, by the way. He's been supporting us massively tonight, and we appreciate it. And they said, who has the historical right to a region, one founded in 1000 BC, or a religion invented in 612 AD? Or is the reality you own the land you stand on if you're willing to fight for it?
And that's a good question, Longdus. And as far as I'm concerned, yeah, and I've actually gone down the massive rabbit hole about who was there first and why if you want to go off of historical claims to land, the Israelis do have the claim. But let's just talk. Let's completely wipe that out. Let's talk about what happened in the modern day that led to the foundation of the Israeli state. And it's going to take a second to explain. I'm not going to go into like a Putin-esque, like 1 hour long rant about it, but I'll explain it from 1880 onwards. So in 1880, there was a country called the Ottoman Empire, and the modern day successor to it is kind of Turkey, but not really. That's a whole other rabbit hole on its own. But anyways, let me go pull up the Ottoman Empire for y'all and show y'all a map of the Ottoman Empire. So this is the Ottoman Empire. This is the directly administered territory of the Ottoman Empire. Let me see if I can find y'all one from 1880. So let me see. Yeah, here we go. So this is the Ottoman Empire as of 1880. Right here. This is it. And you can see that right here, this area that is called Palestine on the map, which it was called as a province under the Ottoman Empire, was under Ottoman control up until 1916, when the Ottoman Empire collapsed and then the Republic of Turkey was formed out of its remains. What is important about this to remember is that the Ottoman Empire was the Islamic capital of the Islamic faith. Not only was it a country, it was literally the religious center of the Islamic world. And the way that existed was through the caliphate. The sultan was the head of the caliphate and largely was kind of like the pope of the Islamic faith at that time. And during that time, even with the Ottoman Empire being the head of the Islamic faith and administering the land, which is called Palestine, under their control, at the time they were desperate for cash, and the land is pretty much useless. Like, to just put that out there, you really can't do a lot with the land Israel sits on nowadays. So they went, we need money, and we're going to put it up for sale. Anyone in the world that wants to buy this useless land that you can't do anything with can come here and buy it. And so at the same time, there was a very interesting movement going on in Western Europe, specifically in Germany, called Zionism, which was the concept from Jewish people at the time that there had to be some sort of an Israeli state, well, not an Israeli state, but a Jewish state for the Jewish people. And they started to try and sort out their options. And really it came down to whatever they could buy or whatever was the most affordable, they were going to go for. They actually had a couple of options in mind. One of them was near Buenos Aires in Argentina, actually, kind of near this area, near the Entre Rios province and the Santa Fe province. And then the other one, which popped up literally right when they were about to go for the Argentinian land, was Israel itself, Palestine. And the land was wildly cheap. I mean, no one wanted to buy it. It was literally worthless. So a whole bunch of the Zionist council members got together and they started to buy up land in Tel Aviv. And the Ottoman Empire legally allowed them to buy it and legally allowed to let them move in. So the Islamic government that was in control of the area at the time legally allowed the Jewish people that live there to this day to buy the land and move there. And then they moved there. And then they started to move there en masse because the land was cheap enough. They just kept buying it up. And that land is what is literally in the center of Tel Aviv now, because Tel Aviv was the start of, I guess you could say, the concept of a Jewish state in this area. But as they began to build up, the Palestinians in the area, if you want to call them that, or really just the Islamic peoples who lived in this area, were very unhappy with a massive influx of Jews, because it meant that the administration or control of this province was going to have to start getting split in between them and the Jews, and so they started to get very unhappy about that. They ended up actually conducting armed action, pogroms of a sort, against the Israelis, or the Jews that were moving into the area at the time, and this meant that the Jews started to create armed militias to be able to fight back against these people, the Islamic peoples who were getting very extreme. So then time passes a little bit. This situation goes on up until the British move into the area, and at the end of World War I, the British controlled this as the Palestine Mandate. And the British's objective the entire time was, by 1947, hell or high water, this was going to be an independent country, and they were going to figure out what would be best for this area, who was going to have it. And considering that the Jewish people here had legitimate claim to their property, as well as the Islamic Arabic people living here, they figured that the best thing to do would be to divide it in between the two and have an Israeli state, considering that they can't just kick them out, and also to have a Islamic state in the same area. And so, as that started to largely transpire, the Arabic nations at the end of World War II said that that's not going to happen. And the Palestinians also said that's not going to happen either. They're just going to kill all of the Jews. Like, if you don't believe me on that, you can go back and look at it. They literally said what Hitler did to the Jews is going to look like nothing compared to what we're going to do to them. They literally said that, word for word. I think it was actually the Egyptian leader that said that, or the Saudi Arabian leader that said that. Nevertheless, they went to war with the Israelis in the Israeli War of Independence of 1948. The Israelis ended up winning, and then they ended up largely creating the borders inside of Israel that you see today, with the Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza, and the Israelis largely controlling the rest of it. And then in some later wars, they ended up capturing the Golan Heights from the Syrians because of continued wars and attempts to try and crush the Israelis. So that's kind of the history that we see in the modern day, and just going off of that alone, without going all the way back into antiquity to figure out who had claim to the land first. Legally, the Israelis got the land in every single way. They bought it from the Ottomans. They then agreed with the British to partition the land, half of it going to the Jews, half of it going to the Muslims. And then it fell apart because the Islamic groups did not want to accept that and wanted to just wipe them out and control the entire area. That's kind of what happened. I mean, when you look at it, everything they did in the modern day was completely legal and really non-violent way to get control of the territory up until the Israeli War of Independence of 1948. So that is really, like, to me, like, if we're wanting to just talk in modern contexts alone, they have 100% claim to the land like anyone else would have, and they have a legitimate claim to control the country still. That's how I look at it, and that's how history largely sees it as well. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I got to thank you so much once again for that amazing support, the huge support that you've sent in tonight along this. $300 total in support, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to go over interesting history lessons like that, and I've got to thank you so much once again for the support, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep the news running like we are right now. And so with that, we are actually going to be moving on into the Middle East really quickly to kind of recap what's going on down here. We were able to see that the American THAAD has finally been deployed inside of Israel, and is on the move. We were able to see it right there. We were also able to see
that is Chad. They always say it looks Chad on the street. I wonder what the Israelis think when they see like such fine equipment is rolling through their streets like that. It must be pretty impressive.
Man, they must be proud. They must be proud. But moving on from that, we were also able to see that a Hezbollah rocket actually ended up hitting in Karat Shimona just today as well. And we were also able to see that a little bit further up on the coast, near to the area of Latakia, that a major Israeli airstrike was conducted against an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps stronghold right here on film.
It's lighting up the sky more than a supermoon.
Man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And also, I saw someone, Matthew Foman, in the chat going, they say we can't talk about religion, but oh, that was about religion. It's like, I can't, like, I literally couldn't avoid it, and I'm not saying either side's right or wrong. I'm just saying how history went. All right, don't be offended.
Hey, don't be offended, Jack. I mean, come on, Jack. I mean, oh, come on, man. I mean,
Jack.
Do the thing.
Also, please, folks, refrain from making religious comments in the chat. I'm seeing them come through, and I'm not liking them. Like, I don't like them any way, shape, or form. So please don't put them in. And we see the airstrikes continuing in the distance. And that's the end of the clip. But very interesting to see, and nice to note that the Israelis are continuing their strikes against the Iranian proxies. Moving on from that and into Turkey, we also got to see that the sea trials for the Hetman Imam Mazeppa have begun today. And we were able to see a little bit of footage of that as well, made by the Turks themselves. You see them showing off this little frigate.
That's pretty good, actually. It's you know, you gotta like it, you gotta love it.
You gotta love it, man. Why wouldn't you? It's pretty cool, though. I will admit, it is pretty neat.
And this is something coming from Turkey.
Yeah, it's coming from the Turks. Pretty cool, isn't it?
I'll never understand Turkey. The Turkey makes no sense whatsoever. One day they're going against NATO, and one day they're giving Ukraine a boat. Look at that, a whole missile too.
Yeah, look at that. And so
they dropped in the water for the hell of it. They said, "Let's get it wet."
Man, they just wetted it up, man. They're wetting it. But moving on from that and on into our location unknowns, we were able to see some interesting stuff up here. Also, really quickly, folks, I got to make a quick mention. We are going to have to be getting through the news a little bit quicker because we are at about an hour and 50 minutes in, and we still have the entire Ukraine war news segment to go from pretty much start to finish. So I've got to speed this thing up a little bit. But moving on into our location unknowns, we were able to see the 47th Brigade in training. We're actually going to be skipping that clip because it's not really a pertinent or important one, but we were able to see some training in Western Ukraine, and the pics went hard. Take a look at these. Pretty cool pics. Love to see them. Hopefully, we see more. Moving on from that into our next clip, we also got to see the Ukrainians watching a Russian drone hit their very building that they're in. Check this out. Oh, and we're going to have to mute that, but we can see them watching the drone, and the drone's watching them, crazily enough, and it slams right down to the roof above them and ends up slamming it. And they thought it was pretty cool, and I'd agree. And then they said they need to get out of there, and I would also agree with that as well. But moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see a Ukrainian Leopard 2A6 with all of its upgrades and modifications for the world to see. Would you look at this thing? They put mesh all over that turret, trying to help to break up those ATGMs or maybe those pesky anti-tank weapons that they deal with here and there. We also got to see the Contact 1 ERA tiles mounted all along the hull, once again trying to provide that extra little bit of additional armor protection. But overall, not that bad. Not that bad at all, and hopefully we get to see that these Leopards are doing incredibly good work. We also got to see, before I move on into that casualty report, something else that was really interesting today. We got to see a Ukrainian Su-24 flying low. You want to see a Ukrainian Su-24 flying low? Check it out.
Man, way too low.
Dang!
Oh, gee.
Оце їбаше прямо над нами. Красавчики води.
And here it comes again. Oh! Amazing!
Оце дав їбать.
And that's the end of that clip. But now, moving on into the finest creme de la creme, we got the Russian casualty report righty. And take a look at it. Oh!
Oh man, 0 Bobcats, but damn, 1450 troops lost in a day. Like, jeez. Lucy Mestiza said that's the 7th highest daily loss. I believe it. That's a lot in one day. But Enforcer, tell us more.
And we got a high number here. 1,450 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 30 APCs, 78 supply trucks, 9 main battle tanks, 29 artillery pieces, 31 drones, and of course, no Bobcat skid steers. Very sad in that category, but great in every other. Moving on from that casualty report and on as the Vovchansk area, we were also able to see some Russians getting slammed in this area by drones. Whoa, hey, cool it with the making my ears bleed thing, but you see him trying to knock down the drone. It's just not going to work, pal. I'm sorry. Oh dearie. Oh, and it's a good night for him, and he is sleeping soundly. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see more Russians getting hunted down in this area by the 3rd Brigade, interestingly enough. And we got to hear even more copyrighted music. We love the copyrights. Long-lasting copyright. And in America, the copyrights do last very long. And we can see another FPV drone hitting another target inside of a warehouse. You can see them getting slammed right there. We see them getting hit again and again, just time and time again.
That one guy, he was running, he stopped and was like, oh, psych, and then the drone went straight to the ground.
Man, it miss. But still, nice to see and good action from the 3rd Brigade today. Moving on from that and up into the Kupiansk area, we were also able to see Russian forces getting hit up in this area as well. Would y'all like to see it? I know y'all would love to see it. Here it is. Take a look at it and see it. Someone said, love your channel, but please cut down on the stupid voices. You should make a poll about it. Well, how about a ban? Like, how about a free ban? You see, I have to once again give out this.
Catch that ban, Hammer.
I have to put this one out there again. It is our show, and we run it the way we want to run it. People are here watching the show because we run it how we run it. I'm not here to run it because you want it a certain way. This ain't Burger King. It's not have it your way. You're here to get the news and just watch our show. If you want to get the news and you don't want voices, go watch another show. There's plenty of them out there, and nothing's stopping you from just clicking off of this stream and going to someone else's. You know, that's how I view it, at least. Anyways, I don't even think I've been doing any voices tonight, to be entirely honest. Like, even if I have, it's been, like, very few. Because, to be honest with y'all, I'm kind of feeling a little low energy today. Like, to be entirely truthful with everyone, and I hope it's not...
Honestly, the way I see it, I just don't understand why we're blocking people out of the chat at all. I mean, if they want to come in and bash us, I mean, y'all feel free. Just come in and bash us and put us down and hurt our feelings. Just go right ahead. Just do it.
Oh man.
Oh.
You know what's crazy, man? You know what's crazy is that if you showed up to their work and started saying stupid stuff to them, like, I like what you're doing, but could you please stop wearing such revealing tops? Jesus. They'd be going, I'm calling the cops. It's like, and then they come on here and just say the meanest stuff. Yeah, and then people come on here and will just say, like, the rudest stuff to us. Like it's just fine. Like, to be honest, assholes. Like, that's
Listen, folks, we're people too.
What?
YouTubers are people too. Me too.
Oh no. Oh no.
I didn't mean it like that. I meant like literally me too.
Oh man. But anyways, with that
Hashtag for the hashtag.
that's the end of the clip right there, but very nice to see. And moving on down and all the way to Chasiv Yar, we were able to see that a Russian FPV drone missed a couple of Ukrainians today. Check this out.
Пацаны, херовые новости.
Тормозить, вылетаем?
Да, давай.
Oh! They missed! How the hell did they miss? They stopped the car!
Ёбана в рот. Держите, кури. Сука, оглушила, блядь.
Да-да.
Ебать, красава.
Жизнь, ну жопу точно.
А?
Жизнь, ну жопу точно. А, бачиш? Ні, я целый. Целый.
Да, значит, да. Потом разберемся.
And that's the end of that clip, but an impressive dodge. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we also get to see a Russian T-90M exploding in the area as well today. Oh, and we got that music. Or something like that. But anyways, we can see the T-90M blowing up.
Man, you sound like you're on the verge of being unhinged over there, like trying to replicate that song.
But it sounds unhinged, man. Like, if you heard it, it sounds like that.
You're putting your soul into that impersonation.
Wait, I'll play it again and let y'all hear it.
I can't. I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not trying to bash anybody that likes that type of music, but that is so far off from like my idea of like good music.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, it's just like, eh. Oh, what we got here? The railroad drag unit is hitting someone. Like, Zoink Scoop, they don't like our voices. Railroad Raggy, Killjoy. And then, boy, are the Ukrainians. Oh my god! Oh my god, Matthew! When lows fly and they're flying, man, look at this thing. Watch. Dude, this freaking Buhanko is going crazy. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Man, it says grim on the screen because the situation was looking real grim for these poor bastards.
Oh my goodness. Dude, this guy is doing a Jack Sparrow run around the Buhanka. Look at him. Oh. Oh, and another Buhanka showed up straight through the hood. And now they're going to go for the flipped over one. And that one's on fire.
It's like a dead roach upside down with the legs off the floor. It's what it looked like.
Man, like Baba Roach. Or something like that, man. Or like little Sheba when she says roaches or something like that. You know what I mean?
I don't understand why roaches had to flip upside down when they're dead. It's like, what is that, like a mandatory requirement or something? Why can't they like die like stand on their feet?
It's a union requirement, Matthew. They have to do it. They have to do it.
And dramatic ass roaches.
Just the roaches then be reaching up into the air going, I can't breathe, or something like that. It's like, what the hell? It's like you're putting on a whole show here. Like, that's crazy.
And like soccer players when they get a little small like injury to their leg or something like that. Oh my god, my life's over.
Man, no, man, they're like that one person who kind of got like hit in the face by a piece of paper from a printer, but they need workers' comp, and so they then flip out and like act like they got seriously injured or something like that.
Yeah, for real, something like that.
Something like that. But man, speaking of something like that, the Russians are getting hit like something like that. Oh, here it comes. Oh, another Buhanka gone. It's sad. Someone said the
Oh
Roach
man,
Union
oh
rules.
man, did someone mention a roach? Oh man,
Aw, man.
blaze it up,
I,
blaze it up.
aw,
Oh, but I forgot though, you got to have a job to get the blazing. And
aw,
oh man, it's about time to go find a new one. Looks like the channel's going down the tubes.
aw, man. I'm coinless. I'm holeless. Aw, man. Life isn't good for me. Aw, man.
He
Time to
said,
do
"Oh
7-hour
man, someone."
streams.
He said, "Oh man, they called me a hoe, but they weren't talking about the Horton."
Oh man, that's a pretty good one. Oh Lord. Aw, man, I'm gonna try and make another hit piece to make $5 so I can buy another Baconator. Aw, man.
Tough life.
That's it. Dude, he's about to go the same way as Salt Life here in a little bit. Man, he's gonna be filing for bankruptcy. But speaking of which, they're just slamming him. Man, you know, honestly though, considering that Salt Life filed for bankruptcy, Hot Dog Man ought to go get that little copyright, because no one deserves the moniker Salt Life but that guy. He's literally living in a salt mine with the amount of salt that he lives with. Like, it's crazy, man.
Man, I'm telling you what, like I can't believe Salt Life went out of business. There's gonna be so many people in like rural places that are gonna be really like in a major crisis. They can't put that sticker on the back of their car anymore.
I know.
It's gonna be tough.
Dude, it's going to be tough for the rural folks out there in the landlocked states that aren't even near the beach that used to put Salt Life on everything. It's going to be a rough time for them. I don't even know how the hell they could go bankrupt, because like literally everyone in the Southeast has Salt Life on everything.
I'm telling you, man, I just don't understand it.
I don't know. I don't get it, man. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But moving on from that and down the line and into the area of Pokrovsk, we were able to see that the Ukrainians were hitting even more Russian forces in this area. Oh. No, that's copyright to hell and back. No. Oh, he hopped out. Bing! And they got him. Aw, man. The auto company has stock shares. Aw, man. Might need to invest. Aw, man. Didn't the Salt Life guy go to jail for murder? Aw, man.
What? Whoa, what?
I plead the fifth. Aw, man. The Baconator is good with fried potato and cold vodka. Aw, what? Oh, wait, what?
Oh man, you know, speaking of the Baconator, y'all seen that Krabby Patty at Wendy's? I don't know if that's a gimmick or what, but that Krabby Patty is looking juicy. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like a child ordering it, but you know, I might have to try it.
Dude, I gotta get one, actually. Oh, wait a minute.
Krabby Patty
Oh!
collab.
And another one. Oh, and that's the end of the clip, but impressive strikes across the board. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also get to see them hitting even more Russians. Please observe.
And I'll bet that they're being hurt.
I don't know what that's about. But anyways, we can see them hitting the Desert Cross little four-wheeler right there. And oh, they got it. Oh, oh, and they're gonna get another one.
This is the Muramasa unit. Oh, look at this guy. Oh man.
Oh, and another one. Oh. The Observer says, just a regular burger with Thousand Island dressing. Oh, come on.
Is that it?
Is that it? Is that
Man.
all it is?
Man, I wanted the special sauce on my Krabby Patty. Mr. Squidward, give him the special sauce.
Mr. Krabs.
The Thousand Island dressing.
Mr. Krabs roll out a Krabby Patty secret formula sauce. Well, Mr. Squidward, give him the next best thing. Thousand Island dressing. Something like that.
Oh man. I feel like I would go in there and order that from the Wendy's, and you know, depending on Wendy's like kind of sketchy quality, depending on which restaurant you go to, you might end up like the food inspector on that one episode choking.
Man, dude, if
With the workers back there talking about, look at him suffer.
Look at him suffer. But beyond that, man, you'd be like Squidward when he got that fork stuck in his throat, going or something like that. It's gonna be like, oh man, this is terrible here. But man, they're slamming these Russians. I mean, goodness gracious. Mayonnaise is not an instrument. No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Or whatever SpongeBob does, I don't know. That was terrible, man. I sounded like Far 4, man, on that Palestinian TV show. You know, inshallah, what inshallah, or something like that. It's like, I don't know.
Mr. Squidward, open this damn door.
Mr. Squidward, open the damn door. Make me finish.
Oh man, how the hell we get on this impression of Squidward?
I don't know. Wait a minute, hang on, Matthew. I got to do this one. Gary, now I know I was wrong. I messed up, and now you're gone. Gary, I'm sorry I neglected you. Oh, I never expected you to run away and leave me feeling this empty. Or something like that. You know that song, man?
Hot dog man, come home.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. But anyway, someone said it sounds like Richard Nixon. I've got to tell you this. As far as my impressions go, I'm not a crook. Or something like that. But anyways, with that, we can
Someone just said, this channel is dumb AF. And their name is Happy Sad. Man, you don't even know what emotion you are. You don't know if you're happy or sad. You're both at the same time. You're confused, man. You're going to have to go.
Man, man, they're going to have to leave. They're going to have to leave today. And Miss Deesa said, you guys on something tonight? Honestly, I feel exhausted, so it might be exhaustion that I'm on right now. Like, I hate to say that, really, because we kind of cut that down a lot recently, but tonight, I'm feeling it. I'm worn out. Probably because of things that happened earlier today. But moving on from that, we can also see more Russians getting slammed just a little bit further down the line. Check this out.
Man, we're getting roasted by the bots tonight. Someone just came in here and said, I love their comedic off topics. Y'all boring AF. Oh, okay. Thank you. So I guess if they can't handle the war news, it's a little bit too high IQ activity. They said this resort to the SpongeBob impressions. That's about all I can handle.
Man, I'm telling you what, dude, they're coming in force right now, man. It gets dumber by the minute. It's like, man, I guess they're not here for when we do our masterclass analysis and stuff. I guess that just isn't around. Like, you know, we could be we can be like goofs and goobers and stuff, you know, like it's fine, really. But it, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Let's see, someone says, is your Discord private, B? We don't have one. Like, no. I have a private Discord account, B, but I don't have one, like a Discord server that I just, like, frequent or anything like that, because we found out that that's a bad idea back at the start of running this channel. You know, like, there are a lot of great people get on Discord, but that's also a breeding ground for not so great people, so we cleared it out. But moving on from that and a little bit further on down towards Volodar, we also get to see them knocking out some Russian vehicles down here. We're actually going to skip this one because it's kind of the same as every other clip so far, so moving a little bit behind the lines, we did get to see some partisans knocking out a BRDM2.
Oh, the guy said, sorry, I didn't mean to type B, LOL. Oh, I didn't know what he was saying when he said that. I was like, what do you mean, B? I was like, what? I was like, hold on a minute, what?
Hey, no problem, B. Sometimes it happens, B. I'm just kidding with you, man. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next bit of news near Staro-Mikhailivka, we did get to see them hitting even more Russian forces in this area once again with more drones. And oh, and they got it. Hey!
It was like a cart of rubbish.
It kind of did. It looked like one of those, like, rickshaws, honestly. I was like, what the hell is that, man? Like, or is this Vietnam? Like, is this, like, Vietnam in the 70s? What is this? But anyways, we also got to see that they were hitting them at night. And so here's the clip. Oh, you see that this one is, shooting, and they hit him. They hit him with that shooting. Oh,
Oh, man.
confetti.
Yeah. Something went flying off way off in the distance. It was a gruesome.
And moving on down into Kherson, we also got to see them hitting a Russian boat. You want to see them hitting a Russian boat? Of course you want to see them hitting a Russian boat. There's the boat. And we're going to be muting that, but we can see the Russian boat. And there it is. And you can buy them a boat. And they're about to be gone with a boat here in a minute. Minus
Almost
9.
like a real crapper boat, too. Was there even an engine on the boat, or were they kicking it with their feet?
I think they're kicking it with their feet. But beyond that, Matthew, it's about to be minus 9 million social credit. Here it comes. Bam! Oh my
damn,
God!
Poor Rinky. Oh my God, man! A shot of fireworks out of it. Bing shilling.
Lord.
Man, a little rinky-dink boat. That really wasn't much of a loss, really. Oh Lord, look
It's
at
on
that.
fire now and just kind of circling in the water.
Oh, what the hell? What is that?
I don't know. It was quite a mystery.
It looked like a whale carcass or something. Man, it looked like a whale carcass.
Wait a minute.
Can I get a hold of that whale carcass, please?
Wait a minute, man. I gotta go get that damn bitch. you about to start busting out laughing when you see it, man. Oh my Lord. The way.
Oh gosh, no, I wasn't talking about that type. I was talking about the other whale. You know, that one that I wanted to frame on the wall.
Oh, man, imagine if he was talking about this one. I was driving down the street when I saw the whale. It was this guy.
Oh God.
Oh my Lord. Man, you know,
This guy wrote. Is that the guy who wrote the book in the picture art right here?
No, this is Brendan Fraser. You know, he's that guy who, you know, was in the industry and then he got out and then he got back in. And this was like his movie back in. But man, I was busting out laughing at this movie for the longest time because this was the only picture people would use for the movie. And there's a joke online that the movie didn't even exist. It was just this one still picture that just existed for like 2.5 hours. Like you clicked play and this was the whole movie, is just this one picture because there was nothing else that they showed about this movie for like 4 or 5 months after it came out, except for this one picture.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard of it either. Kind of odd.
Man, this you know what this is reminding me of right here. Is reminding me of a song. I'm just kidding. Moving on from that and on up into Kyiv, it's time for us to get to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 966 of the war. I actually have to go back and look at that now because we've gone through so many days. I can't really remember which one it is. But really quickly, let me go and try and pull up the actual speech. If he had one today, hopefully he did. President of Ukraine. And so let me see if I can find it. And let me see if I can get it. Office of the President of Ukraine. You know what's crazy, Matthew? We actually, like, just to show this to y'all really quickly, we actually ratio the official YouTube channel of the President of Ukraine. They get 833,000 views a month. We get 5 million.
Well, it's not a pissing contest. It's not a pissing contest.
It's not, but it is interesting to see that. So we have a 30-minute long speech. This is a long-lasting
30 minutes.
30 minutes! It is long. So we are going to cut this down a little bit and only play like the first 7 minutes of it or so, because we clearly cannot play all of this. Like, just putting that out there, it would be impossible. So without further ado, here's the speech. Speech!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Наші люди в Україні, у світі не втомлюються говорити «Слава Україні!». Україна не втомлюється відповідати «Героям слава!». Але на нашій землі стали рідше звучати слова «Україна має перемогти». Перемога для декого стала незручним словом, на жаль. І в реальності ми розуміємо, перемоги не просто досягти. Хоча тільки перемоги народжують для країни славу і дозволяють берегти реальну пам'ять про героїв на століття. І дають можливість країні жити. Жити незалежно, жити вільно, жити суверенно на своїй землі і за своїм законом. і самим обирати для себе майбутнє. Майбутнє для України – це, безперечно, бути сильною частиною глобального світу, бути на рівних з усіма країнами-лідерами, бути в Євросоюзі та в НАТО, бути там повноправно, бути там – це справедливо для нас. Слава Україні! Українці заслуговують на це. І саме в цьому наша мета – відвоювати для України право на життя, вибити для України саме справедливість, завершити цю війну надійним і чесним миром для всіх нас. Я дякую всім, хто наближає реалізацію цієї нашої мети, кожному воїну, всім громадянам України. І саме для всіх нас, українців, підготовлений план перемоги. План перемоги України – це план посилення нашої держави, посилення наших позицій, щоб бути достатньо міцними у завершенні війни, щоб Україна була з усіма мускулами. Цей план можливо реалізувати. Це залежить від партнерів, підкреслюю, від партнерів. Це точно не залежить від Росії. Кожен в світі бачить, що Росія не шукає чесного миру. Путін збожеволів і хоче тільки війни. І він сам, особисто він не зміниться. Він надто з минулого, надто вчорашній. Він глухий до всіх інших. Але разом ми, українці, разом з нашими партнерами, ми повинні змінити обставини так, щоб війна закінчилась безвідносно до того, що хоче Путін. Ми всі повинні змінити обставини так, щоб Росія була примушена до миру. Спочатку давайте згадаємо, що майже 2 роки тому на саміті Групи 20 в Індонезії Україна запропонувала формулу миру. Це стратегія припинення російської агресії проти України і українців та відновлення справедливості для всього нашого українського народу на основі цілей і принципів Статуту ООН. За 2 роки майже 100 країн з усіх частин світу підтримали формулу миру. Я вдячний кожній такій країні. Ми провели успішний інаугураційний саміт миру, і ми змогли довести, що цей переговорний формат, він може бути успішним для головного, для завершення війни. Але Росія поки ухиляється від чесної дипломатії та поміж бомбами кидає ще ультиматуми. Ми повинні це зупинити. Жоден російський ультиматум не матиме сенсу для всіх нас, не матиме сенсу для України. Це гарантують наші воїни, всі наші люди, наша єдність. Єдність України і єдність наших партнерів. І все це є основою нашої здатності досягти справедливої мети. План перемоги – це шлях посилення України. Це саме таке посилення України, яке потрібно, щоб не тільки захистити позиції наші, українські, але й щоб прокласти міст до проведення другого саміту миру, який поставить справедливу для України крапку в цій війні. Сьогодні я хочу публічно вперше представити цей план і звертаюсь до вас заради єдності і підтримки України. Дорогі українські народи, пане Голово Верховної Ради України, пане Прем'єр-міністре, пане Головнокомандувач, пане генерале Збройних сил України, панове керівники наших поважних розвідок, Служби безпеки України, шановні урядовці, голови усіх державних інституцій України, народні депутати України, українські дипломати, представники держав наших партнерів, які сьогодні тут присутні, шановні посли в Україні, усі, хто присутній сьогодні в цій залі. Терміновість плану перемоги саме зараз. Це пункти, більшість яких розраховані детально в часі. Якщо почати рухатися цією ідеєю, з цим конкретним планом перемоги саме зараз, то може вдатися завершити війну не пізніше, ніж наступного року. Ми всі з вами, хто відчуває біль війни, чуємо, що у таких назвах, як Покровськ, Вовчанськ, Харків, Суми, наш Оріхів, Запоріжжя, Херсон, Донецьк, Луганськ, Крим, звучить не тільки доля України, але також доля інших країн, країн Балтії, Фінляндії, країн наших сусідів, Балкани, країни Центральної Азії, Грузія, Молдова і країн з інших регіонів світу, які далекі від нас з вами в Україні, але дуже близькі до наших партнерів. Це стосується і Лівії, і Сирії, і країн регіону Сахель. В битвах, в яких зараз б'ються українці, саме тут, в Україні, заради своєї незалежності вирішується, чи порине світ у ще більш воєн. Росія та її спільники хочуть більше воєн. І це факт. Вони...
And with that fact, we are going to be rounding out the speech right there in Rum Slava. And with that... And with that, we're going to be moving on into the second segment of the stream. About 40 minutes late, actually. The news segment was wildly long tonight. I mean, incredibly long. But we have tons and tons and tons of questions to get into. Loads of questions. Long-lasting questions. And we have to have the chance to get to all of them. Hopefully, like all of them. But we will get to like every super chat. And thank you for the chance of having a stream to run. And we will get all of the live chats as well. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, we have one more poll to address, and it says, sources say that Israel's plan to attack Iran is ready right now, and how severe do you think the Israeli response is going to be when they finally do carry it out? So about 43% said Israel is going to go all out on Iran, while 35% said Israel will have some restraint, and 12% said it'll be a very minor response. And honestly, at this point, I think if the response was going to be as big as we think it could be, for example, going all out, I think Israel would have probably already responded by now. So I'm assuming the U.S. has probably talked them into having some restraint, and they're probably not going to go all the way. And when I mean go all the way, I mean striking the nuclear facilities. They're probably not going to do that, and they're probably going to have a little bit of restraint because of the U.S. pressure in the background. So I'm with the 35%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm going to be with the 35% as well. They are going to have some restraint because old daddy, Uncle Sam, is back there telling them they better or else. So they probably will have some restraint with this upcoming attack. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are now moving on into the questions themselves. And Matthew, I understand that the questions are absolutely juiced and unequivocally bussin'. So what do we have, Matthew?
So the questions are juicier than an A5 Wagyu steak. And our first one here goes to Plant Lady, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Plant Lady, for that $50 support. We appreciate it very much. It's very generous of you. And they said, so sorry, I've been on this the live stream lately, and my family is making a move soon out of California to Kentucky. Damn, that's a hell of a move, by the way, like for many different reasons. And also, I hope you like the move as well. But they said, I will be still popping in as I can't stay away. And please take a question from the chat.
And we will make sure to get a question from the chat. But still, thank you for checking in and thank you for supporting the channel tonight. And I hope that y'all have the best of luck with this move. Moving from California to Kentucky is a long distance. It's a really long one. It's almost across the entire country nearly. But I hope that it is worthwhile. And I hope that y'all enjoy the move because California and Kentucky are pretty different places from what I've seen. We drove through a lot of Kentucky back in the day. Let's see, where did we drive, man? We drove from Nashville up here on Interstate 24, and then we went through Paducah and this kind of an area here. So Kentucky, from what I could tell, is very different than California because we've actually been through both of them now. We're kind of well traveled these days, come to think of it. I've been to every single state through here. I've been through pretty much every single state in the Southeast, except for West Virginia. Although that really doesn't technically count as the Southeast. That's kind of just like right at the very border where it goes into the north. I have not been into Maryland or anything further northeast than that, so I have not been into the Northeast. Haven't really been in the U.S. Midwest, as they call it. I have been through most of the U.S. West, though, like, let's see, Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota. Well, not really South Dakota, Nebraska, though, and Iowa and Missouri and everything. Been through Louisiana. Haven't been in Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, or Arizona, or Nevada. But every other state I've pretty much been through, except for Alaska and Hawaii, of course. But beyond that, I got to say, it's going to be a bit of a change, and I hope that y'all really do enjoy. But still, we will be making sure to hopefully get some word from y'all, of course, hopefully when the move is done, and hopefully they really enjoy it. But nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to stay on air. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got from the live chat?
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Tusk Force, who said, do you think it's likely that India will ditch BRICS and align more closely to the West?
Technically, BRICS is such a loosely aligned organization, it doesn't even really count for anything, to be entirely honest, because India and China have had souring relations for a very long time now. They even had souring relations before BRICS was made. I would say that that's certainly going to happen. BRICS doesn't even really matter. They can be a BRICS member and still pretty much be Western aligned. It wouldn't really matter that much in the long run, but yes, they will be distancing themselves from BRICS and aligning more with the West as time goes by, which is a strategic necessity, because for them, the Chinese are trying to seize some of their land, and for us, we are trying to contain the Chinese and stop them from expanding outwards into the Indian Ocean. So for both of those reasons, India will be getting a lot more Western and American aligned here in the future, which is something that a lot of people don't get, and this is something that I've seen a lot. There is a decent amount of a dislike really like everywhere for India becoming Western aligned, which I don't really understand, because as far as strategy goes, this is a fairly solid move. The Indian GDP is rising. Let's see, India GDP. Let me go right here. GDP rank. Oh my lord, this annoys me whenever. Okay, let me just put in China GDP. Maybe it'll give me that, and then we can go find India's off of that. Are you kidding me? So Google has completely removed that little GDP chart that they always had? Is that what they're telling me? That if that's so, that's BS. That is total BS right there. Because you see, if I pulled up earlier, US GDP, they've removed it? They've removed the chart? You know the little chart I'm talking about, Matthew, the graph?
Yeah, if you go to probably like Statista, it'll probably have it there.
Okay, let me go see. India GDP. Not the rank. I want just the GDP, damn it. So let's see here. So it has reached, as of 2022, $3.4 trillion, which means, if I remember this correctly, India would be, I think, the 5th largest GDP in the world at the moment, behind Japan, China, and the United States, along with, there's another country, Germany. Yeah, it would be Germany. So it would be Germany, Japan, Russia, Germany, Japan, China, and the United States, and I think India is number 5 at the moment. And they are starting to grow a pretty good bit, from what we understand. It's several percentage points every single year. It's about 7%, so it's a pretty fast-growing economy. And so not only economically is it important to get another large economy within the Western fold, strategically, it is also a imperative for us on a military level, because we are able to create a physical blockade to the Chinese from expanding on into the Indian Ocean, or if they ever did expand into the Indian Ocean, there will always be a permanent American presence due to Sri Lanka and India literally being smack dab in the middle of their sphere. So it's an incredibly important thing that we get the Indians on our side, something that people just don't get. Like, it's kind of like how the Chinese were growing at a time and everyone just kept dunking on them until they've grown too large and now they're an actual threat. Like, I feel like we need to, you know, of course, see the changing trade winds, which is happening with India, and get them American aligned and Western aligned before they start going another direction, and who knows what direction they would go in. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And I thank you so much once again for support and sponsoring that live chat plant lady and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. Also, so sorry everyone for all of, like, the stutters and stammers and all of the misspeakings, because I just said plat lady and it's plant lady. I don't know what it is. Today I have been absolutely exhausted. I don't know what it is. Well, I actually do know what it is, but still, I've just been exhausted after the fact today, and it's really worn me down. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, I put up a poll. Excuse me, goodness gracious. And the poll says, which state would you prefer to live in the most? I just had this question, I just asked it. 40% said Texas, 25% said California, 20% said Florida, 15% said New York. And honestly, the 40% in Texas, I'd agree with you. I like Texas. I like Texas a lot. Florida, it looks pretty nice. It's got a nice coast, but it's pretty crowded now, and it's very expensive for really no real good reason. California, maybe so, but it's expensive also, really for no real good reason. But the coast is very beautiful out there. And 15% said New York. I personally would never live in New York. But Enforcer, what say you?
Dang, dude, just going to crap on New York? Dude, New York isn't that bad. They got places like Albany. You ever seen Albany before?
I don't like New York, man. I don't like it. It's just not good.
What? What? Oh,
it's
no
good to visit,
way.
I think, and not to live in it.
I don't know if that's a heritage unit or what. Isn't that, like, for all my railroaders out there, isn't that like the Erie and Lackawanna Railroad kind of? No, I think that's the Delaware and Hudson livery, actually, that they had. That's cool, though. I've never seen that before. That's actually pretty cool. But still, I don't think it's bad. Well, this building's ugly. But I don't think it's bad. I mean, it's not like a bad place or anything. If I had to pick a state, I'm talking about a state, folks. Like, out of those four, which really kind of limits this, because there's like 50 states, so this is like less than 10% of the options. But if I had to pick one of these four states, one of the four, and one of the four only, and we cannot pick one more, and we cannot pick one less, I would say that I would probably pick Texas as well, because it just is like a good all-rounder, really, in my opinion. Florida has a problem, at least me personally, because if you want to buy a house down there, there's no such thing as home insurance anymore in all of Florida. So, you know, if your house gets destroyed in a hurricane, it's just kind of bad luck for you. You know, just figure it out on your own. And I don't really like that's the thing now. So I would generally have to say I would pick Texas, because I like California. It's an interesting place and it's very pretty. Problem is that it's wildly expensive to live there, so it's completely out of the picture due to just financial feasibility. And then the state of New York, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's not bad. You know, there's many nice places in New York State, but when I generally think of New York, I think of like those turbo-sized rats that live in the New York City subway, and you know, that's like, for some reason, that's like the image that I get.
Those rats are huge.
Those
are
things
big
are
ones. Like,
massive.
those things are massive.
Wait, hang on. New York City rats. Let me go see if I can get a picture of these rats for y'all. Yeah, here they are. Like, these things.
Almost says the people. No, not the people. We're not calling the people rats. I'm talking about the real rats.
These.
Oh, man, that's just. Oh man, like, I just don't like New York, man. Like, I would like to see it on a trip, but I would never like to live there.
Rats. We're the rats. We pray at night, we suck at night. Look at this thing, man. That thing's literally scrimpy. Like, that thing's freaking scrimpy down there.
It's built different. That ain't no rat, man. It's like a nutria or something.
Bro, that thing is huge, whatever the hell it is. Like, I don't know, y'all. Like, I hate to say it, like, because I don't want people thinking, like, I just think of rats when I think of New York, but I've never heard good things about New York City. Like, I'll just be honest with y'all. Like, it's not like the politics side of things. I want to make that clear with that. It's the quality of life in New York City, because people always say that there's like trash built up on the streets and it kind of smells, and it's just like, it's kind of just an unclean city, sort of. And then that's like a thing to me, like public cleanliness, things like that, or at least like a basic civil sanitation department that works. And it never really sounds like it works in New York City. Maybe just because of population density reasons or something like that. I don't know. But beyond that, one thing I can say about that is that for that reason, I just am not really a big fan of New York City. And, that kind of reflects badly on the entire state, because it's, well, like New York City is pretty much the state. Like, New York City runs the state for the large parts, the largest city there. So, it is what it is to me. I just don't know. Like, really, to be honest, if I had to pick LA or New York City, and I've never been to New York City, I've been to LA though, I would probably pick LA, because LA at least was like clean in some places. I just never have heard that any part of New York City is actually clean or really, really nice. At least from what I know. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe y'all can say that I'm wrong if you're from New York City, and I would believe you because, y'all are there and I've never been there, but I've never heard good things from people who have been there, and that's kind of.
I've also heard that Turkey has priority access to the city of New York for some reason. Like wherever the Turkish go in New York, like the government of Turkey, they get priority access for some reason. I have no idea why.
Man, and I heard that up there, man, the Turkish ice cream guy doesn't steal the ice cream back from you. Like, he just gives it to you. Like, it's like, what's up with this? There's got to be some kind of embezzlement going on here. I don't know. But with that, oh,
Man, they gave him the keys to the city. Only one person can give him the key, and that's the person that runs the city.
Man, as mayor of the city, I declare it is a pity that our city is full of and run by Turks. And then he got Erdogan out there. He's like, Turks, we run the whole freaking city. It's like, why? It's like, what the hell's going on here? Why do y'all run it? It's weird. It's weird how they did that. I mean, I gotta say that, like, man, you're gonna have.
And then they say, it's kickbacks. It's kickbacks.
Nah, man, you're gonna have the Pied Piper show up. He's gonna be like. And then you're gonna see like all the rats get up in the sewer and they're like dancing or something. It's like it's gonna be wild. But beyond that, let's see. I'm trying to see what people are saying. Someone say you're wrong, my friend. Well, please, do elaborate, because I would like to come up there one day and see it, because I'm not one for putting places down without seeing them. Like, I'm saying I'm hearing it's bad, and that's why I kind of have a bad impression of it. Maybe I'm wrong though. Like, maybe if we went to New York City, we'd be like, this place is really nice. I don't know. But let's see here. The eats would fall in the meat grinding hoppers. Oh my God, the rats would fall in the meat grinding hoppers in a meat factory in New York City? Man, that meat's got to be busting.
Hell, man, if the meat tastes good, I mean, I'm not asking you questions as long as it tastes all right. As long as the rats aren't carrying something like really bad, you used to carry the plague, but I don't know if they're carrying that anymore.
Man, let's see. LA is better than New York. Dodgers. Oh God, it's sports. LA does have a transit system. Doesn't have a transit system. It has mobile injection sites. No. Actually, no. That's a little incorrect. Actually, I don't know if you're from LA, but when we went to LA, there was a lot of public transport out there. Like, no joke, there was loads of it. They actually have a rail commuter service, which is unheard of in America. So that was actually like huge. Like, we couldn't believe they had that. And they also had a decent amount of buses. So there is public transport in LA. So that was something that was shocking to me, because here in Alabama, public transportation is a myth. Like, it just doesn't exist. Like, if there is a bus, it's like only maintained by the city as like a requirement, and the buses like run once every like hour or 2 hours or something like that. They're not regular services, and that's it. That's all you get. So whenever we hear of public transport, we're like, wow, that's crazy. Like, we can't believe that a city would actually put money into public transport, because beyond that, most people go, well, you're on your own, pal. And then you got to figure out how to get around. But anyways, with that, I hope that does kind of address that fairly well. And also, Mestiza is correct. LA does have a metro subway system too. They have it all. I mean, they do have a public transport system. And let's see here. LA has bad enough transit.
The only catch is you might get mugged going into the public transport station in
man.
LA, but you might make it through as long as you like go through acting a little crazy and ward some bad people off and stuff like that.
Man, but in New York City, man, don't go in the subway there, man. Jeez, like that would be a bad one. Like, let's go to the Metro Transit Authority station on 23rd Street. This is what their stations look like underground.
Man, I saw a video yesterday of a guy filming in the subway in New York. Like, they were riding like the subway car and it was going along, and there was like some barking coming from the corner or something like that in the subway car, and the guy looked scared to death that it was being recorded, and they finally turned the camera and it wasn't a dog, it was a dude.
Man, that's New York. Welcome to New York, dude. Look at this guy.
Oh, He knows a guy that knows a guy.
Bro, this guy works in sanitation. It's like just like that. He's like, "Oh, hey, Venny, I know a guy." It's like, I'm sure you do. Like, it's like, I'm sure. But let's see here. Let's see here. What else? Man, I'm telling you, man, these things look rough. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, and maybe it's just that it's like a turn of the century kind of a station, but geez, man, I don't know. It's kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. And they just need to get the crime under control in the big cities. Like that goes for the whole country at this point. The big cities have always had a crime problem, worse than rural areas for obvious reasons. There's a bigger population, but you should feel safe to go to the subway, like at least partially safe. Like I wouldn't feel safe at all going to the subway here. And also, New York has, I think, very bad concealed carry laws as well. And you can't even really be armed down here that well, or at least without going through a ton of hoops. So it would be like just basically being vulnerable, and anybody could attack you at any point. There's a lot of bad people that hang out around these spots that are mugging people.
Yeah, that's true. I would generally also say, like, you know what's interesting though? I actually think they put the National Guard down on the subway stations these days. I think that's been like a thing now for a couple of months. So I guess they're trying to fix that a little bit. But it's like also, it's like, what does that say about a city when you got to put the National Guard down in the subways? You know, it's like that doesn't really sound like a good situation. But still, I gotta say, beyond that, the New York subway system is a very interesting one, full of interesting contradictions. Like this one. Like where it says, "I hate graffiti," but then they graffitied that onto something. It's like, alright, thank you. Like, I don't know. Thank you for your contribution. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Uh-oh. Matthew?
We're back. We're
God,
back.
please.
And also, I was seeing in the live chat, by the way, people were getting, like, for some reason, people were laughing really hard at my comment about getting mugged down the subway. I guess people get a kick out of getting mugged in the subway. Some people were like, LMAO, this is hilarious. It's like, no, I've actually heard of people getting mugged down there in the subway for real. But anyways, moving on to our next one here, we have a $21 donation from Purple Gerbil. And thank you very much, Purple Gerbil, for that support as well. And they said, good evening all from Saskatoon in Canada. And take a live chat in LSA forever.
Hey, and hello to the folks up there in Saskatoon, up there in Canada. There we go. There we are. It's Saskatoon. And hello to Purple Gerbil up there in the good old city of Saskatoon. Take a look at Saskatoon, folks. Take a look around. Isn't it enjoyable to be here in Saskatoon? We got kebabs. Now, kebabs are pretty good. And let's see here. We got sushi, ramen, poke, and bento. You gotta enjoy them bento beans. And let's see here. Man, it's not a bad city. Honestly, not. Oh, paramedics. They don't put ambulance on the side of these. These are paramedics, trained and true. They also have a subway. Do you see the
Subway and Jared's 5 footlongs.
Man, why the hell does that sound like a medieval fable? Subway and the story and the tale of Jared 5 foot long. It's like, no,
You
man.
don't know the story about all that?
Man, I know, man. I mean, Jared was throwing out more than $5 footlongs. I'll tell you that.
Jared was wilding.
Gerald was throwing out all kinds of footlongs, and they weren't the fresh and healthy kind. But nevertheless,
They weren't $5
he was actually giving out free, apparently, from what I was hearing.
for free.
For free, man, nothing's free. Well, trust me, fellas. From old Jared over there, it was free. But we also got sewing and we got nail and spa right here. It's not a bad city. Wait a minute, is that? Oh, Vietnamese and Thai. Wait a minute, Vietnamese, Thai, Chinese cuisine. They're specializing in everything
Licensed
here.
dining room. You have to have a license to have a dining room up here in Canada?
I don't know.
Dining room, licensed and insured like a contractor.
The Sturdy Stone Center. The Sturdy Stone Center on 122-124 3rd Avenue North. All right. And what is in the Sturdy Stone Center? Do we know what's in the Sturdy Stone Center? Where is that building? Dude, where in the world was it, man? It's like we like whipped out and it disappeared. Where's the Sturdy Stone building, man? I wanted to look at it. What the hell? It disappeared, man. Where is it? Dude, no way.
What else do they have in Saskatoon? They got anything else up here?
Let's see here. Alt Hotel. Man, this must be that alt they're talking about, you know, like that, let's see here.
And also, by the way, I see people saying licensed dining room. That's code for they have hydration. It's good for drinking, like alcohol.
Oh, that makes sense because you also have to be licensed down here to do that. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it's not a bad town, though. It's not a bad town at all. Really. I mean, really, not at all. Yeah, I think it's nice, actually. I like Saskatoon. Matty, do you like Saskatoon? I like Saskatoon.
Man, I love Saskatoon, man. I love
Man.
Canada.
I think Canada's great. Now, there are some people we met from Canada that are a little questionable, but they're kind of like an outlier because everyone else I met from Canada was pretty chill, except for those people. But they leave a bad impression. Bad impression. Kind of, and this is not even worth going into, but still, with that, thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep on running, Purple Triple, and we will make sure to take a live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our live chat question here is from Judy, actually, in the live chat, who said, do you think the U.S. should bomb Iran?
Yes. Not getting into whole details to why. Yes, I think they should. And so with that, I hope that doesn't address that very quickly, but also kind of just very succinctly. But still, I thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat, Purple Dribble, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Neil Vizanon, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Neil, for that support as well. He said, I just saw a vid saying that Russian army and FSB didn't get along. And also, it's getting worse due to purges and FSB put in charge of defending against Kursk. And what are your thoughts?
And I would have to say that is a very interesting question. And I would have to say, I have not really heard a lot about that. I haven't heard a lot about the FSB conducting purges in Kursk, so I would generally have to declare ignorance on that at the moment due to a lack of information. I hate to say that because usually we try not to say that, but I personally haven't heard about that much. I've heard about the Ukrainian partisans putting up roadblocks and the Russians running into them at 100 miles an hour on the E-38, but I haven't heard about that in particular behind the lines at the moment. But still, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Neil Vizanon, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be here on this channel right now, and we wouldn't be able to make sure that this thing is possible and running. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Long This once again, who's been probably the biggest super chatter of the night. And huge shout to you, Long This, once again, for the $20 support on this one. He said, not prestigious, guys, about middle of the choices. And he's talking about the B2 pilot-like placement. And I was wondering about that because I actually saw a video earlier today on YouTube. It was of the pilots going to their graduation, I think, and they were assigning the planes to them. And the B2 pilots seemed like they were not that happy about being assigned to the B2. But at the same time, I did see comments saying that it was prestigious because you had to get certain security clearances because, of course, the B2 is nuclear capable, so they have to trust them with that. But also, the fighter pilots seem to be the most happiest, so I was curious about where it was. And it looks like it's about middle of the choices, so it would make sense. But Enforcer, what say you?
That would make sense. It would. But I don't know how the people are going to be feeling about the B-21 Raider. It's just kind of like the B-2, but better, I guess. At least that's how it's being advertised at the moment. And there's going to be loads of these things, apparently. I think they planned hundreds of them. Let me see if they have. Let's see here. Aimed in the mid-2020s. The date slipped to 2027, and they were high classified. Okay, so here we go. And let's see here. Let's see here. We want to get... Dang, I'm trying to see if we can get a number here. Okay, so they want to operate at least a fleet of 100 of these, which there were only, I think, 20 B-2 Spirits built, or 21 of them, I believe, and 20 of them are still in service. So they want to pretty much expand the stealth bomber force by 500% compared to what it's at what its current size is right now, which is pretty big. And I guess a lot of new pilots are going to be on the B-21 Raider, most likely. But I wouldn't complain. I think these things are also incredibly neat and pretty cool. And so with that, I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, another thing I have to say this really quickly because I was looking at the side of this plane, and I was thinking of the History Channel because Matthew actually has had the History Channel on recently, and so I've been having to hear the brain rot that comes out of it. Like, scientists had to figure out how to build this building in the middle of a river, and so they used a special kind of concrete that could be used in water. And they make it sound like it was like some kind of like a revolutionary thing, like this hasn't been done for like 100 years at least. And I'm like, oh. But one thing that annoys me is when they make like a documentary and they're like, the B-21 Raider has an exceptionally advanced design, and then they like put like the reverse filter on it, Matthew, you know the one I'm talking about, and then they say, could it have been aliens? It's like, oh my god. It's like anyone who knows anything about the development process of flying wings knows it wouldn't be an alien. Like, it's just obvious. It's like, I cannot stand, dude, how they'll sit there and make everything into aliens, dude. They'll be like, the ancient people who loved to play with stones and built giant pyramids may have gotten help from the aliens. It's like, why? It's like, wait a minute, so it's like, so we're saying that out of everything, all right, they watch these people come down from the sky, right? You know, like they're watching aliens literally come down in spaceships, and so they sit there and go, oh, great, wonderful ones. We think y'all are godlike, and instead of asking y'all to feed our people or maybe heal the sick, we're going to ask y'all to help us to move rocks. It's like, that is like the stupidest thing that anyone's ever tried to sell. Like, I don't know who's selling because I'm not buying. That's stupid. And the people who believe in that stuff are goofy. Like, they really are. I don't even know how in the world you could, like, seriously, unironically believe that aliens helped build the pyramids or something. It's like, out of everything they could have done, like, with this advanced technology, they can travel thousands of light years, I suppose. They're going to come and help someone play with rocks. Like, that's, like, the most important thing on their agenda, right? Like, that's stupid. And also, they can communicate with aliens. It's like, come on, man. It's like, what are you going to do? Like, set up a tin can with a wire from the top of the pyramid and send it into space? Come on. Like, be real. Like, it annoys the hell out of me. It really does. But anyways, with that, beyond the whole History Channel talk, they do have some pretty cool documentaries, though. I like the ones that they make on, like, American industry leaders. Like, there was actually a really interesting one where they talked about Hormel and, you know, all of the fast food chains that exist in America. Those are actually pretty well made, and I really, like, commend them for making those, because while they're really summarized, like, it still is an interesting kind of like a historical lesson on, like, the commercial sector in the United States. But a lot of their other stuff is just garbage. Like, it's just pitiful. But anyways, with that, I do thank you so much once again for supporting to help this channel to keep on running along with this. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, by the way, I just had to get rid of a lurking hot dog supporter who's lurking in our chat right there. Also, several other people alerted me to it, and they said that person's a hot dog supporter. I did not know that. That person's been in the chat for a little while now, and I did not know that. So he was keeping quiet for a long time until tonight, and he couldn't hold back. He had to let out the hot dog urges tonight, so we found him, but he's gone now. But anyway, so moving on to our next one, we have a $20 support from JP on the road, and he is once again on the road. And thank you very much, JP, for that $20 support. And he said, every time I see the enforcer searching a wiki list for something, I yelled out loud. I said, dude, use the Control F function on your browser. Try it sometime, and long live the LSA.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support. And I will try the Control F function on the browser. Let's check it out, Matthew. What happens when I press Control F? What happens? All right, well, Matthew went dead again. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support.
What happens? I was waiting to see what happened, man. I didn't see anything.
Well, I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's going to brick the computer or something like that. You know, it might shut the whole thing down. But it's still...
Man, you expected me to do something. You pressed Control F and you thought I was going to say something.
Yeah, I thought you were, but beyond that, I thought your mic went dead too. But beyond that, I thank you so much for the support, JP on the road, and we will make sure to try that sometime. But of course, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and long live the Lee Spring Army and Scrimpy. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So, also, do we need a live chat question, by the way? No, he did not ask for a live chat. I thought we did. But thank you very much, JP, for that support. And moving on here to our next one, we have a $20 support from Ted D. And thank you very much, Ted, for the $20 support as well.
Hey.
I did not see a comment attached to it, but of course, thank you very much, Ted, for supporting the channel. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Ted D, because while you didn't throw in a comment, the support means a lot and helps us to keep this channel running. And so a massive thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Davo LBC, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Davo, as well, once again, for that support. He said, LSA Major General Davo LBC reporting, the excuse me, the old saying that there are no unattractive girls is best proved not after a bottle of vodka, but after a year in the barracks.
Huh.
Huh?
Huh?
That can be interpreted in many different ways there, good sir. I'm not sure how to construe this statement.
I'll tell you this. I'm not a crook. But beyond that, I will say thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I actually had a friend in the Navy, see? And he was actually on board. He was actually on board those ships. You know what I'm talking about, Matthew. He was a brother of someone you knew in high school. I think he was in the grade above y'all, I think, and he ended up getting into the Navy. I remember he came back and we were asking him questions. And he said that that's largely true. And I was like, interesting. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Davo LBC, because you're always throwing in the interesting stuff right there. And of course, long live the LSA, and the LSA will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Kevin, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Kevin, for that $20 support as well. And they said, so I've always heard about Holocaust survivor flotillas in 46 to 48 going into Palestine that were attacked and bombed by the UK. Is that true? And I'm not sure. And I even was told that ships were strafed by the aircraft.
Let's see here. I don't think, at least from what I remember. Hang on here, let me make sure. Let's see here. I don't see anything about it online, and I've never heard about that before, because generally the British kind of wanted them to go there because they knew that the situation was still not that great in Europe, at least for the ones that survived. So, from what I know, I don't think they ever did that. Because that wouldn't really make a lot of sense, especially considering that the British were really hardcore at that point of kind of trying to be as, I guess you could say, humanitarian as possible, especially during that time in history, after the war. That would be very weird for them to do something like that, although they would do some pretty questionable things inside. Let me think of where. My brain is absolutely fried right now, but somewhere around Kenya, I believe, they did some questionable things, and also within Malaya as well. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Enforcer, this is totally off topic, but I was just scrolling through Twitter to do a breaking news search real quick, and I ran across a video that I've never seen before in my life. Very interesting. It's the former Attorney General riding in the back of a cargo plane, a military cargo plane, and he's propped up next to the door. I'm going to let you take a look at this real quick.
Is it on our likes tab?
Because it's actually very intriguing to see.
Is it on our likes tab?
It should be reposted on our main page.
I'm not seeing it. Let me refresh really quickly and see if I see it now. And there we go. What the hell?
Is that real?
What the hell? Wait a minute. I'm going to have to show this to y'all. Are we seeing this correctly?
No way.
What is this?
Man, did they have him sitting on a plank?
No, he's sitting on like a chair.
That is him. Like, that is him. Like, this also, this is not political, by the way. We're looking at a guy sitting in a chair, so please don't get political. But I know you can hitch rides on planes and stuff like that, like the military planes if there's spare room, but I didn't know they put you in a seat like that, like out of the back.
That is him. That is him, dude. It's the same hair and everything, and it's the same glasses. Dude, that's him. What the hell is he doing back there?
That's crazy, man. I don't understand that.
And why is his
I never
hand
thought
like
that Fred
that?
Flintstone would leave bedrock and go over to the back of a plane.
What the hell, dude? Like, what I don't even understand. Where the world does this come from? And why is he doing this? I don't know. Like, you know, folks, really quickly, I know. Oh no, here comes the political comments. What to put past it? We're not talking about it that way. I'm just talking about this because this is weird. Like, Why? Why has he got his hand like that too? Why in the world is the back open? And what's up with the plank? What's the plank? What is that? Why?
This is weird.
This whole thing is weird. Like, I don't, like, did he say, oh, I want to sit at the back with the door open? And they went, no, you can. He was like, oh, and they were like, okay, but we got to put up the plank. Like, what went down for them to do this? I don't know. Like, this is weird. And let's see. Enjoying the views, what he's doing. Yeah, I mean, but why? Like, why? This is so weird. Like, why would you leave the
He
back?
actually looks kind of scared, really. Like, he kind of looks a little bit concerned sitting back there.
I don't get it. I don't get this. Let's see. I don't even know. I don't even know what this is. What are the comments? Let me take this thing off screen and check that. What are the comments on this thing? Maybe there's some context here. Let's see here. Oh man. Dang, all the political comments. Jeez, I just want to know.
Also, I'm going to undo that repost, by the way, so that we don't have political comments like flooding in on our Twitter page. So that's where it went.
I don't even know what the hell that was about, really. Like, I just want to know why he was back there just looking out the back of a plane with a plank, like, held up by straps. I don't know. And oh no, Matthew, you brought it on us. You brought it on us. The political comments are flowing in. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
So our next one here goes to Luke Bowers, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Luke, as well, for that support. He said, Enforcer Matt, Enforcer, I'm late, but made it. And some well-deserved and Enforcer funding for you both to enjoy. And thank you both for all you do in bringing us the war news with flair and style.
Hey, and thank you so much for the kind word, Luke Bowers. Thank you for supporting the channel. It is folks like you who make this thing possible for us each and every day. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And of course, better late than never is what I always say. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 10. And says, from a historical perspective, I think it's a sign of weakness that totalitarian dictatorship regimes are banding together and having to share their meager resources. And I'll say, keep up the good work.
And I would agree with you, Andrew Honeycutt. I think it really is a sign of weakness that they're all having to try and band together. It's not because they're doing good. They're all kind of on the backslide a bit right now. And it's certainly starting to show even through their actions. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible right now, Andrew Honeycutt. And so a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Adam McLean, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Adam, as well, for that support. He said, this is the best channel on the internet, and enjoy.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Adam McLean, and thank you for saying that this is the best channel on the internet. We hope we keep it up to a pretty high standard, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help us to continue to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, and with that, we're on to the next one.
Oh, man, the Wi-Fi, man, is having some issues or something. I'm lagging out again. Hopefully it fixes itself. But anyways, moving on here to our next one, we have one from Chiefs Wheats, who puts in a $10 donation. And also, let me do some checking real quick. Let's see here. Chiefs Wheats. That is not your first super chat, but I thought it was. I don't know if YouTube's maybe not registering it or what, but thank you very much for that support. I said, finally made it to a live broadcast or brainscast, and thank you and your work, your hard work in keeping us all off days on the latest events from the front lines across the globes. LSA.
And I thank you for the kind words, Chief Wheats, and I thank you for enjoying the efforts and work that we put into this channel, because we always put 100% to making sure that this news comes out every single day, hell or high water. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, long live the Lee Spring Army, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Psyops, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Psyops, once again for that support. He said, Live 24 here. He said, any comment on Mr. Watergate recent jailhouse interview? Not to be icy, but to chill. Oh, dear. Man, I'm telling you what, this is crazy, Psyops. It's crazy at this this last part of the super chat. But thank you very much. And he's doing good from the jailhouse. He's in the kennel now, so he's in the jail. But thank you very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the support, and I can confirm, Mr. Corgi is doing quite well. Masu will work, or as I call him, we grishak. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we're on to the next one.
All right, so moving on here to our next one, we have a $10 super chat from Quantum Fighter. And thank you very much, Quantum Fighter, for that support as well. They said, it's been a while since I supported you two, and the only channel I've ever donated to, and you're doing great with top-notch coverage, to the point and belly-busting fun, and great analysis. And take a live chat question. Solve Ukraine and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And we always try our best to make sure that it's pretty well balanced with news, and also it's not, a drag as well, and, really mundane or really sad for the most part. But I do thank you so much once again, and we will make sure to get a question from the chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
So our question from the chat is going to go to, let's see here. This one's going to go to Doug Halstead, who says, how is Ukraine doing in Kursk, and have they lost any ground?
They have lost a little bit of ground. The Russian offensive, while hitting a brick wall on the first day of it, was able to push the Ukrainians back about 1.5 miles from Koronivo over the past 2 days. So we are seeing that the Ukrainians are holding an effective defense outside of Lyubomovka at the moment, but beyond that, we're not really seeing much else happening, rather than the 810th Brigade getting obliterated today near Bolshoi Soldatskoy. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also a bot said the radio host voices y'all are trying to put on are cringe. That's my natural voice. So,
yeah.
Oh dear, these bots! I'm telling you what, you just can't handle it. Can you believe it? Well, over the last couple of days, we were accused of buying subscribers because the subscriber growth has been so crazy. It's unbelievable. Like other YouTubers that are jealous cannot handle it. That we've gained so many subs.
Wait, was that Hot Dog Man?
Yes, he said. Oh man, they have to be buying subs because you can't grow this fast. It's like, well, no, we're actually growing that fast. Hello, buddy. Welcome. Bing, 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 bing.
It's
but
like,
anyways,
it's like, dude,
move on here to our next one.
Dang, man, you're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour there. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
So, anyways, moving on to our next one here. It goes to Andrew Shank, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Mr. Shank, for that support. He said, hey, guys, I've heard from other YouTubers the Ukrainian kill ratio is 2.5 to 1. And what's your take on that number?
And I gotta say, I don't really know for sure, because the Ukrainians don't publish a casualty report for us to actually get a good comparison at the moment. So that might be true, or it might be a little untrue. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next two super chats are going to go to Butchie the Crouton, as well as Alan McMillan, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Butchie and Alan, for that support. And I did not see comments attached to them, but of course, you are both longtime channel legends, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank the both of y'all for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. All right, moving on to the next
5G Wi-Fi sucks like terribly.
It
Can you
sure
hear me?
does. It sure does. And we're on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next one here, it goes to Jordan Drew, who puts in a $7 donation. And thank you very much, Jordan, for that support. He said, do you think China, or by extension, North Korea, would take advantage of, oh dear, Jordan, this one's a little bit political. I think it might draw up some ire from the political crowd, but Enforcer, what say you?
Sadly, that is a little too political to comment on, but I do thank you for the support, Jordan, Drew, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and I heard it that time. This one goes to Boy, who puts in a $6 donation, and thank you very much, good sir, for that support. They said China paid Putin $200 billion to invade Ukraine, paid Iran $100 billion to attack Israel, and then threatened North Korea with starvation or attack.
I don't think that's how that happened. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to cover the news. But I gotta say that doesn't really sound true, because I don't think there's any proof out there in the world at all that China's sending massive lump sum payments to people to do anything, from what I know. But anyways, with that, thank you once again. And
That'd be pretty cheap too. Like $200 billion to invade a country, that's pretty cheap.
That is pretty cheap. That's like discount prices right there. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And on to our next one here. This one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and orders the usual, the number 5. And he said, take a live chat question. And we shall, CK. And thank you very much for supporting the channel as well. And the live chat question is going to go to, let's see here, Stevie Mack, who says, I hope that you will mention that Australia is giving Ukraine 49 Abrams tanks, about 245 million Australian dollar in total. And pretty awesome.
And I think I did mention that earlier on, but I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, CK Bold, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to MXZ Plus, like a streaming service. But thank you very much for that $5 support.
Hey!
And it said, hi, Enforcers. I just need to thank you for your time and energy making these streams. Love from Finland and LSA. And thank you very much as well. And also, if you want to win, you hire a Finn. That's what they always say. And also love to Finland as well. And thank you very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support all the way from Finland, a really cool country. And I got to thank you so much once again for enjoying the channel and throwing in some kind words, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kevin. We actually have 2 more super chats from Kevin, who puts in a 5 each time. And thank you very much for the 3 super chats tonight. And he said support fatigue is already a real thing, and this plan doesn't seem to alleviate that. And also he said, I'm surprised you Alabama boys don't have better. We have gigabit fiber in Mississippi, LOL. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is saying a lot. Alabama has just dog crap internet. It's shitty. It's terrible. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. And it just annoys the hell out of me, honestly. And also, that might be shining through a little bit tonight, because it's horrendous. And also, I'm just exhausted, to be entirely honest with y'all. Like, I can hardly even come up with a thought at the moment. But still, I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And I do agree, support fatigue is a thing for a while. But still, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
Man, the lags make it sound like you're getting a shellacking over there, like with a belt or something like that. It keeps going, wow, wow. I'm like, what the hell's all that racket? Oh, crap. Let's see. Can you hear me?
We're good. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Let's just make sure to keep it rolling, so that way we can just get through it. So with that, we're on to the next one. All right, and so Matthew is off again, so I'm going to just continue it on, and hopefully he comes back. So MMM Martin threw in a 261 actually, threw in a $5 super chat, hey, and said, does Zelensky know that 1970s CIA sabotaged instrumentation in factories before it was installed in the reactor control rooms of Chernobyl? And good show. And no, he doesn't, because I don't think that happened, because the Chernobyl disaster occurred because of a misoperation of the reactors by the Soviet controllers, not by CIA screwing over the control boards. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support, MMM Martin 261, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And Matthew, can you hear me?
Also, Enforcer, can you hear me now?
I can finally hear you. And
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me? And I can't hear you now. And Matthew, I think regardless of how that goes, I'm just going to have to keep this thing rolling, because we're going to be spending more time trying to get you back on air than we are trying to do anything else at this point. So with that, we are on to the next one, which is a $2 super chat from LSA Sergeant Figment. And hey, and LSA Sergeant Figment said, hit the LSA like button. That's in order. And please do hit that like button. We would be very appreciative of that if y'all could. We've already gotten up to 3,200 likes tonight, and I know that we can get even higher than that. And of course, a big thanks to LSA Sergeant Figment for supporting the channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one, which is a $2 super chat from Bruce Lee, who didn't throw in a comment, along with Butchie the Crouton, who threw in a $2 super chat as well and didn't throw in a comment. Each one of y'all are massively appreciated for y'all support, because it helps us to keep running and helps us to make this thing possible. And so with that, big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one, which is a $2 super chat from MMM Martin 261. And MMM Martin said, can any LSA nodes track SATCOM usage in Karelia? And I don't think so, because I don't think we have any nodes like that in the entirety of the LSA. But still, a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep this thing rolling. And so a big, massive thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the last super chat, and hopefully Matthew is here back on the mic at some point, but it doesn't.
Is it better now?
And it's better now. All right, so with that, we are on to
Oh my God, man. I can't believe we are finally back. Like, this is crazy, man. Like, I'll just go dead for like a solid, like, 30 seconds to 2 minutes or something like that.
Minutes,
This is
yeah.
terrible, man. Like, 5G is awful. But anyways, moving on here to our last one. I hope everybody can still hear me because I keep cutting out. But this one goes to Neil Vizanon, who puts in a 2 and says, Control F lets you find specific words on the page.
And I thank you so much for the support, Neil Vizinot, and I will have to try and check that out, try it out, after the stream. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing on air. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into our live chats. But really quickly to say this, I hate this because we actually kind of had like a short super chat segment tonight, but I am absolutely bushed, and the internet connectivity issues are making the stream really difficult to run at this point, because I can't tell if Matthew's here, if he's not, or if there's some kind of massive lag going on between me talking and him hearing me and me hearing him. So we are going to address the Morse code decoders, 3 live chat questions, and then round out tonight's stream. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the Morse code decoders tonight were Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, David Millsaps, Royal Fluffiness, and Arabelle Garbo. They said today's message in the Morse is to New York Tony Bliat, slow down. You're driving into a tank, Tony, with the straight face there. Slow down, for the love of God. Another straight face. LLT, LSA, LOL.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail on the 966th day of the war. And I got to congratulate y'all for that, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to know what the Morse code message says each and every single night. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to, let's see here. Let's see. This one's going to go to Joe Collins, who says, how come nobody's talking about the broken agreement that NATO and the U.S. made about extending NATO after the war?
Probably because that was the kind of, well, wait a minute, extending NATO after the war. You mean the war in Ukraine, or the end of the Cold War, or which one? Because I was going to answer that, and I was going to say that's kind of a problem for the 90s, but NATO is kind of like a perpetual organization. It just exists permanently. Like, there's nothing written in the charter where they're like, at this specific time, when this specific thing happens, NATO ceases to exist. So I don't know why anyone would be talking about that, because it's not even a thing, from what I know, that actually exists, at least from my knowledge. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who says, should they give up their territory that's been invaded and traded for fast-track NATO membership? I think that's an appeasement.
It's not really an appeasement, because that's what Russia tried to invade to stop in the first place, is Ukraine joining NATO. So it's not necessarily appeasement, but it is giving away things that Ukraine would want back. And I don't really think they should be giving land away to the Russian Federation, in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least according to what I would believe. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Darth Karn, who says, North Korea blowing up their bridges and railroads, wouldn't that be considered tactically stupid? And I mean, unless they're thinking they're the defending party, what do you think?
It is pretty stupid. It's really just supposed to be escalatory, but it's really shooting their foot off. But then again, it's not really shooting their foot off, or like, shooting themselves in the foot, because we do understand that they have pretty large tunnels that they built under the DMZ that can actually funnel about an entire brigade per day into South Korea. So it's not really screwing them over too much, because their initial plan was probably to use the tunnel networks they built in the first place instead of using the bridges. So kind of in one way it is screwing them over, but in the big picture, it might not be by much. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching tonight. Thank you for dealing with the internet lag situation, because it has been strenuous for probably everyone. But nevertheless, we had 10.7 thousand people here at the peak, and 72,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. If y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and do everything in between. And we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, hopefully with better internet, to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night to you all, folks. And once again, thank you all for another great stream. And don't worry, the Wi-Fi will be fixed tomorrow, because I've been working tirelessly around the clock to make sure we have fiber being installed tomorrow. So rest assured, it will be installed, hopefully, and hopefully there's no glitches with it. But with that, we'll see you all tomorrow on the Short War Summary midday. And tomorrow, I believe, is the Enforcer's Day. So if there is news to cover, you'll be hearing from him. And also, be sure to join us tomorrow night for the next night of War News streams. And with that, Slava Ukraine, here on Slava. Get some rest and good night.
Yes.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Army.